we're going to need to make sure we can hear. Those in the audience, can y'all hear me out there? Okay, we may need Pete to make a volume. Oh, I'm sorry. Back in the back. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's. I'll try not to blast everybody. Okay. So there's a quorum, so I'll now call the meeting to order. First up is our public comment period. I'll recognize everyone that has signed up to speak. When you come to the lectern, if you would, please give your name and your address to the clerk for the record there. First person signed up is Gladys Carr.
Mr. Mayor, council members, and citizens of Monroe. My first memory of Monroe was coming with my daddy from Waxhaw when he had business here in town, and I would be deposited at the Oasis to get my hamburger and Coke, and it was located right in front of our county courthouse, which was beautiful to view. Aren't we pleased with the new roof on the clock tower? It's lovely. And now we have a Dowd Center downtown, and soon a science museum that will be open. But, ladies and gentlemen, we need to beautify our downtown. We need, in my opinion, and many of my friends, I think Marion and Mary Helen agree with me for sure, hanging baskets with beautiful floral arrangements, perhaps some planters and some benches. We need people to want to come downtown. We need walking traffic. We need people to shop and to invite family and visitors. I know, Lynn, your aunt, Norma Privet-Kazar, a dear friend of mine from Waxhaw, would be so happy if we could have flowers downtown. You know, when you have a warm, welcoming environment, people love coming, and we want all ages to feel welcome. I think, Julia, maybe you and Wayne enjoy going to Blowing Rock. They've had hanging baskets forever, and they certainly have lots of people walking downtown. Maybe we could use that as a pattern. Gary and Sandra, I bet you go to Matthews occasionally. Don't they have hanging baskets? Surely we here in Monroe can do even better than those two mentioned towns. So, a happy place, a place to shop, a place to enjoy just being outside. Beauty is indeed an invitation. And sharing and working together, we can make this happen. Freddie, when you and your brother Johnny were at the funeral home, once upon a time you said to me, Gladys, the last thing in the world that you need, we will do for you. And tonight I'm saying, I really want hanging baskets.
I get it.
May I please close with a quote? And I was so excited about speaking, I didn't tell you who I was. Everybody knows me, don't you? Gladys Carr, 2527 Round Table Road. I really am a citizen of Monroe. This is what I want you to remember about what I'm saying. Hope is the ability to hear the music of the future. And faith is the courage to dance to that music today. And I thank you so kindly.
Gladys Carr, Gladys.
Yes.
You're the best.
Thank you. Thank you so kindly. Thank you.
Okay, Ron, I'm sorry about pronouncing your last name. From Sticks. Help me out, Ron.
I've been called worse.
Yeah. I've been called a lot of things, just not late to dinner.
My name is Ron Pereira. I live at 1118 Sticks Drive. And what else do you need to know? I can't remember. Oh, well. Anyway, I called a member of the city council today around noontime, and I was shocked because I got a real person on the phone. And so I call my daughter sometimes, who lives over in Weddington, and she barely ever answers the phone. I have to leave a voicemail. So I was really excited about that. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, the city council, for doing what you do. It really feels like a democracy here. And I watch the Ukraine on TV, and I think how lucky we are to be able to enjoy, to be able to do this. I think it's just wonderful. I had a couple of just general comments. My background is I've been in accounting. I've been a bean counter all my life. And I was wondering if the financial statements, the monthly financials for the city, could become part of the regular agenda instead of included in the, what's the other part called? I can't remember now. Anyway.
Consent.
But, and I was wondering if they could be changed a little bit, use different metrics and so on to be customized for the city of Monroe so that an average citizen could look at it and say, oh, that's what's going on. Now, okay, now I understand it. That's one of the things that I wanted to mention. And the other thing would be if the general manager or city manager or somebody could write some comments, like 3 or 4 significant comments about what's going on in the financial statements. What are the changes? You know, why did our property tax revenue drop by 10% or something? Or why did sales revenue, you know, whatever, go up or something? Just the 2 or 3 significant things so that an average person can look at it and quickly grasp what's going on in the city. The other thing that I'd like to see is, I want to put Marion to work here. I was wondering if we could just get like a State of the Union message every month, like 2 or 3 significant things that have transpired in the past month, that if you could just make a little presentation, you know, a 3-minute presentation for the citizens here. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. But so that's about it. That's my general comments. And again, I just want to say thank you to all of you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Coming out.
Appreciate it, sir. Joe Murphy, please.
Keep that.
How are you doing?
Good. Good evening, sir.
This is kind of odd to be. I'm usually talk, you talk like this, and then you turn around and you talk like this. It's odd. But anyway, I do want to speak a little bit about the beautification of downtown. I understand, and many people don't know this yet, Gladys has opened a flower shop, and she sells hanging baskets. So really, if you want, you can get your hanging baskets cheap from Gladys. To me, I moved here from Boone after living there 40 years, and I was there long enough to see Boone grow from a fairly ugly little place to now a very desirable place. And it took effort, and it took a plan, and it took years of working on that plan. And finally, they're there. They're about there. They also have a theater downtown that was renovated, you know, and they've done a lot. It depresses me to come to downtown Monroe because there's so many empty, boarded up buildings. That's depressing as hell. Who wants to see that? I don't. You can go somewhere, go to Waxhaw if you want to see a good downtown. They're doing a great job. And also, are they going to do away with the hilltop? I saw a map that said it was going to be zoned mid-level a hospital or something? Yeah. Okay. But, no, I'm just encouraging you to continue this work to try to get the downtown area looking good and being attractive, and whatever it takes. It, you know, it takes much more than hanging baskets, obviously. It takes investment in businesses and people that want to come downtown and create businesses. And I think we've got, there seems like there's money in Monroe, but where does it go? I guess it goes to Charlotte. Who knows? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Rachel Donahue, please. Now, Ms. Donahue, you have here general zoning. Are you going to be referencing the UDO?
Not specifically the UDO.
Because that,
it's more just general thoughts about zoning, some of the neighborhoods that are coming up, the UDO as well, but not anything specific with that.
The reason the mayor is asking is that under council's resolution for public comment, if you cannot speak on an item that is set for public hearing,
I'm going
UDO's on
to
the
read
public
an excerpt of a book with some general thoughts that have to do with everything, not specifically the UDO. My name is Rachel Donahue. I live at 2337 Balting Glass Drive. And in light of lots of things on tonight's agenda, I'd like to read a short passage from Andrew Peterson's book, God of the Garden, which describes a place not unlike Monroe. It's the kind of place real estate developers drool over. They snap up a bunch of acreage, bulldoze it to oblivion, subdivide it into tiny lots, and sell it off at a hefty profit, often without the developer ever setting foot on the land. For the last few hundred years in America, land has not been seen as a civic good, something we all get to share and steward, but primarily as a way to get rich. There's just so much of it here, miles upon miles of land, and that lack of scarcity has led to a lack of care. It's true that people need places to live, and I don't begrudge anyone the dream of owning a pretty house for their kids to grow up in, but I believe we need more than just houses. We need homes. And a home is more than just four walls where we eat and sleep and watch Netflix. It's a place that shapes and gives meaning to our lives, like Gladys was talking about. We need places with a capital P, places that honor the community's history, the sacredness of creation, and our basic human need for beauty and nature. But we have become a country and a county of no places. There are essentially three kinds of places in America: the city, the country, and that weird in-between thing we call the suburbs. This slice of America where we name subdivisions after the trees we've cut down to build them, where we've zoned out any hope of a bookstore or a restaurant within walking distance, where we slave over lawns we seldom use, where our front porches are too shallow for a porch swing, where we walk the dogs but can't walk to lunch, where we don't really get to know the neighbors because nobody's planning to stick around for more than a few years, where the dominant feature of every house is the two-car garage door, where getting to know people is tougher than it needs to be because there's no village pub, no local bakery, no corner farmer's market. In other words, no casual gathering point where it's possible to bump into neighbors in an organic way. I have come to think of subdivisions as no places. They're communities with no commerce, sidewalks that lead to no real destination, townless clusters of houses and more houses, places without capital P, place. My point is simply this. Please stop filling Monroe with no places like this and start listening to the many citizens who've been pleading with you over and over again to have a care for our capital P place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Ann Walters.
Thank you, Mayor and councilmen and women, for allowing me to speak, and City Attorney, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Ann Walters. I have a home at 700 West Franklin Street, which I probably should have walked down here, but I didn't. I was born here. My dad was born here. His dad was born here. I live here now, and I plan on dying here. Hopefully not in this meeting, but I do plan on dying in Monroe, and that's what's important. I am so passionate about downtown Monroe. I'm passionate about this town. I cannot stand for a friend to call me and ask me to come to Waxhaw and have a drink or dinner with them or meet them there for coffee. When our downtown is prettier, the bones and the structures we have here are prettier than any place in Waxhaw. But that's what people drive, and that's what people do. And it takes money out of our city that I think we should have. The city Dowd Theater is awesome, absolutely unbelievable. We had a world-class, world-renowned comedian here. Couldn't even get tickets to it, which is great. The city science Science Center is going to be unbelievable. One of the things my father taught me is I've always said to my father, I'm fixing to. And have you done your homework? I'm fixing to. And have you brushed your teeth? I'm fixing to. And y'all, we've been fixing to for a long time in Monroe, and it's time we do what we need to. I agree with Miss Carr, not just because she was my statistics teacher a long time ago, and I passed, but because, I'll tell the truth the second time I passed. But because that makes a difference, that's not expensive. It's my understanding that this downtown beautification budget was going to be $800,000. And now it's my understanding it might be $1,800,000, which we need money here. Do we need that much? Do we need George Jetson-like things running around downtown Monroe? We are a southern town that's what we are, and that's what we've always been. So let's go to our roots, let's go to our bones, and make sure that we do what this town deserves. A flower. Just like she said, how hard is that? It's one of the cheapest things. The parking guy, why he's marking tires every 2 minutes when we don't have enough people down here, can water the flowers. I mean, it's pretty simple. Southern Range and the Superette, y'all, I don't care what you think about them, they have brought business to downtown Monroe. I own a 7,000 square foot business here in downtown, in the city limits, and that's one of the main reasons why, because people can leave my business and go have lunch. They can leave my business and have a cup of coffee. They can meet friends. They can do all these type of things, and that makes a difference. But I guarantee you, if you talk to them, the permitting process was beep, beep, while they did it. That's not the employee's fault. That's not the employee's fault that the permit process is that hard. That is what we need our leaderships to look into and see. In my 7,000 square foot building, while we were doing it, I had to spend $12,000 on water fountains. Water fountains. They've never been used because of COVID. Never will be used. But my last thing, I think you said I have 1 minute left. The last thing is, we have swings on this plan. I've studied this plan. We have swings on this plan that swing into a brick wall. I think we need to hurry up, fixing to study it. Let's fixing to study it. But do it right. Visit other towns, see what they have. Don't study a plan, but let's get a move on it.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm fixing to call Carol Williams.
Wow, it isn't on the agenda, so I think she's
Carol Williams. I live at 402 Wildwood Road. That's in the farms of Willoughby Farms. There is a proposed development to be built behind our neighborhood going up to Weddington. It's going to possibly have 300 houses. There is also one that's already been, two that have been approved on each side of Rocky River, and that's approximately 500 houses. This is an area that is less than half of a square mile, and if the 300 houses are approved, if the annexation goes through and the houses are approved, you'll be putting 800 residents plus a shopping center in less than 1/2 of a square mile. That seems a little crowded to me. We moved here in 2019 after 26 years in Cincinnati. We could have gone to Charlotte. We have, we've been in Charlotte before. It's a nice town, but it's crowded. We came to Monroe because it's laid back. We have a neighborhood where you don't even hear any road noise. It's kind of like a little piece of Mayberry. And putting 300 houses near us will just absolutely ruin it. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Trey Holmes, please. Is there an over? Hey.
Sorry, I was in the other room. My name is Tracy Holmes, and I live at 2213 Field Pond Lane, which is right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard. My concern is it's already a lot of traffic over that way with all the rezoning that's going on. I wonder if you ever thought about the children as well while you're thinking about this rezoning. Right now, I'm a teacher at Monroe Middle School, and if you rezone What are we gonna do about the schools as you're talking about rezoning? I agree with Ms. Carr as well. So much is going on. I remember coming to Monroe with Oasis and all this. Instead of us going out trying to fix up out in the community, taking away all this land, and I understand, but when you're building things, think about the people and the residents that are already here. I think sometimes we forget. We need to work on downtown and creating more things that is more community involved. If you look around, like the others were saying, Waxhaw and the other various places, yes, they do have places to go. But I feel like we need to have places to go here as well. And it's like I said before, when you talk about rezoning, think about the school system as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the public comment period. We'll go now into the public hearings. And I now recognize Matthew Black. Matt's probably out in the hall.
Make a comment if that's all right.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to make a public comment if that's all right.
Sure, come on up. Just state your name and address, please.
Yeah, name's Joe Milner. I live at 1002 West Franklin Street. Just wanted to touch on the beautification project. So I think downtown Monroe has a lot going for it. One of the biggest things is we have two streets that create more of a downtown district than just a downtown main street. I looked over the Windsor Morgan alleyway project. I think it's headed in the right direction. It feels a little bit more Waverly Place in Charlotte than it does Monroe right now. I think some of that's the design elements. We were a little bit more traditional design around here. I think leaning more towards that would be better, keeping the southern charm. I understand why people would want to include a splash pad. I'm dad of two small kids. The last thing I want to do is try to keep my daughter, who's going through a splash pad, away from people in business suits. And we're looking forward to the one down in Belk Tonawanda Park. But I think keeping certain areas of the city dedicated to different types of recreation is good. We need more places to eat downtown. I'm from Asheboro. One of the big things that helped us was when we were starting to renovate downtown, there were two restaurants and they actually closed off a side street and had sort of a raised dining platform. It was really nice because as you were walking down the street, you could talk to neighbors that may have been eating outside, you're face to face. Having some spaces down there that restaurants downtown could have some outdoor dining would be great. I've seen the number of people who've come to listen to live music downtown. Perhaps having a bandstand would be a good idea. So the space is good. I'm concerned about how it's dedicated right now. Swings were mentioned. It seems a little bit odd, so maybe rethinking that a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Go back to the public hearing. Since we do have quite a few people here, let me run over some guidelines that will make things run smooth. If you want to comment and you've signed up, you proceed to the lectern, state your name and address clearly, be concise. You want to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you've got a large group, just designate one good speaker to be your spokesperson. So now I'll recognize Matthew Black. Here he is.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. My name is Matthew Black, Downtown Director, and today I bring forth an economic development grant for a downtown business that's coming within the next couple of months. I don't know if he's here today or not, but the business is Bauhaus Boutique, whose owner is Kevin Donaldson, which has signed a 3-year lease to operate a retail business. The new business project totals of 1,700 square feet of retail space and is in downtown master plan area. It is in recommendation of the Downtown Advisory Board and staff that City Council approves the downtown incentive grants as outlined with the following stipulations. The first one is that grant funds for the Pronto grant is not to exceed $5,190, which is payable over a year period in 1/4 increments upon proof of paid invoices toward rent. The second is that the grant funds for the Meet Me Downtown grant is not to exceed $5,000 and is paid out upon proof of paid invoices for any marketing material proposed and the application. So in total, the two grants are not to exceed $10,190. And staff and the Downtown Advisory Board is requesting City Council authorize the mayor to execute all related documents, the manager to execute all related documents with funds not to exceed $10,190. And that includes the resolution awarding the incentive, as well as the incentive agreement and the budget amendment. Are there any questions?
Anybody on council have any questions? Okay, no one has signed up for or against. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment for or against? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and move to take action.
I make a motion that we adopt the resolution. Second.
Well, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All in favor, if you would signify by raising your hand, please. Anyone against? Likewise, okay. That motion carries.
Motion to approve the incentive agreement.
Second.
Well, we have a motion and a second to approve the incentive agreement. All in favor, if you would signify by raising your hand. Thank you.
Motion to adopt budget amendment.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the budget amendment. Those in favor, if you would signify by raising your hand. Okay. All of them carried. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, I'll call Carrie Mendler to come and present the next item, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Carrie Mendler with the Planning Department. Tonight I'll be presenting two separate items under one presentation. The first item is an annexation request. The second item is a zoning text and map amendment request. The applicant is requesting the annexation and conditional district rezoning in order to develop 150 single-family homes. The total area of the project is 67.37 acres. To orient you to the site, the property is highlighted in blue. It is located south of Waxhaw Highway. The subject property is currently located in the county's jurisdiction and is zoned Union County RA20 and RA40. The adjoining zoning is also County RA20, RA40, B2, and then two conditional districts, which are city zoning. The conditional district Walter Bickett to the east, and conditional district Waxhaw Landing to the west. The applicant is requesting the conditional district in order to develop 150 single-family homes. As I'm stated, the total area of the project is 67.37 acres. The density of this project is 2.23 units per acre. The minimum lot size proposed is 6,000 square feet, with an average lot size of 8,568 square feet. The development will be a mix of 80-foot wide lots, 60-foot wide lots, and 55-foot wide lots. It will have 12 of the 80-foot wide lots, 86 of the 60-foot wide lots, and 52 of the 55-foot wide lots. The proposed setbacks are 25 feet for the front and rear, and 5 feet for the sides. The project is required to provide at least 12.5% open space, which would equal 8.39 acres. The total area of open space provided is 28.63 acres, which is 42.63% of the overall site. The open space for this phase also includes natural walking trails, 2 covered fireplace gathering areas, a community garden, a small and large dog fenced parks, a playground, and multi-purpose fields. And just to go into the site plan a little bit and show some of those features. The walking paths, as you'll see, are the lines throughout the site plan. They are connecting some of the cul-de-sacs and open space to different areas of the site. The multi-purpose trails will be in the rear of the site here. It's approximately 4 acres of open space. There'll be a playground. The dog parks will be towards lots 124, 53, and 93 towards the rear of the site. And then towards the front, they will have the fireplace and a trail also gathering space to that fireplace. Street trees will be provided at a rate of 1 per 50 feet, and all houses will also have 2 front yard trees. The trees will be a minimum of 3 inches in caliper at the time of planting. Additionally, a 20-foot landscape buffer is being provided along Waxhaw Highway, and a 25-foot landscape buffer is being provided along the eastern and southern property lines. The buffers will have a mix of trees and shrubs as indicated in the typical landscape buffer, which is on sheet 4 of the rezoning site plan. 5-foot wide sidewalk will be provided along both sides of the interior roads, and an 8-foot wide sidewalk will be provided along Waxhaw Highway. The applicant will be required to provide stormwater management to treat stormwater runoff for the project. This will be evaluated and reviewed if approved by City Council at the permitting stage of the process. They do have the general proposed locations of the stormwater ponds on the site plan as indicated with SCM. The developer is proposing the homes will be a minimum of 1,600 heated square feet. The proposed exterior building materials will include fiber cement, stone, stucco, and/or brick. Vinyl will only be utilized for trim work. The front facade will also include a mix of materials with a minimum of 25% being brick, stone, or stucco. And 4 courses of brick or brick veneer will extend up the face of the slab. Each home will have a minimum of a 2-car attached garage. All front-load garages will have the carriage-style trim and/or hardware that mimics carriage-style doors. And driveways will be able to accommodate at least 2 vehicles. Additionally, all of the 80-foot wide lots will be required to have a side-load garage. The developer is proposing for all of the streets to be constructed to the City of Monroe street standards and maintained by the City of Monroe. The proposal includes 1 entrance on Waxhaw Highway. However, this does have 2 internal connections to the original phase of Waxhaw Landing, which had 2 access points to Waxhaw Highway. Due to the number of lots in this development, a traffic impact analysis was conducted for this project. And the following transportation improvements will be required. They'll be required to install a left turn lane into the development at their access point. Additionally, at the intersection of Waxhaw Highway and Fletcher Broom Road, which is further west, they will be required to construct an eastbound and westbound left turn lane along Highway 75 or Waxhaw Highway. They'll also be required to add a "Do Not Stop on Tracks" sign. The development falls within the Walter Bickett Elementary, Monroe Middle, and Monroe High School districts. The Water Resources Department has also taken proactive steps to prevent any over-allocation of capacity as experienced by surrounding jurisdictions. So phased sewer permitting and water meter sets via the attached developer agreement supports the implementation of the city sewer capacity use strategy for balancing residential and non-residential projects. Additionally, the applicant did hold a virtual neighborhood meeting on September 29th, 2021. 1 household did attend that meeting. Rezoning notification signs were posted 10 days prior to the public hearing, as well as official rezoning notification letters, which were sent to property owners within 150 feet of the property, again 10 days prior to this public hearing. The future land use plan indicates this area is suburban. While residential uses typically take the form of neighborhoods with uniform housing types and densities, a mix of housing types and lot sizes is preferred in the suburban locations. Multimodal connectivity between neighborhoods and nearby centers should also be emphasized. and strategic connections to the off-street multi-use trail network are preferred, and open space should be preserved in both active and passive forms within neighborhoods. The density for suburban residential is 2 to 4 units per acre. The proposed project is consistent with the future land use plan. Planning staff did recommend approval of the project. However, Planning Board did recommend denial of the project. This is also in your packet. These were the following concerns by Planning Board, as well as the applicant's mitigation and changes since the Planning Board meeting. There was a concern about the number of existing and proposed homes within the vicinity of this project. The applicant did reduce their total lot count from 190 to 150. There's also concern about the elevations that were presented to Planning Board that were different from those that were given to staff. The applicant has submitted all new elevations, so what is presented to you tonight is what the applicant is requesting for consideration. There's also concern about some transportation requirements not being clear at Planning Board. We have reached out to NCDOT, and they have finalized their list of requirements for all of the phases combined. So the transportation requirements that I presented here tonight is the final list from NCDOT. They had concerns about the lack of amenities for this phase. As I stated, the applicant did reduce the number of lots and in turn added additional open space and amenities such as the multi-purpose fields, covered fireplace/gathering areas, and dog parks. Planning Board also had a concern about the lot size mix. So the applicant was originally proposing all 51-foot wide lots. The applicant has removed that and increased the minimum lot width to 55 feet wide, as well as included a mix of 60 and 80-foot wide lots. Planning Board also had a concern about the lack of side load garages. So the applicant has provided a note on the site plan requiring that all of the new 80-foot wide lots will have side load garages. And lastly, Planning Board did have a concern that the site plan did not show the trail locations. The site plan has been updated to show the proposed location of the trails. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well.
Anyone have any questions for Gary or the applicant?
I thought the planning board's comments were very online, and I thought the applicant's response was extremely good because they addressed each one of them.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question for the participants. Can everyone see the screens okay with the lights there, or do we need to dim those for the others? Is it bright enough? Okay. We have a few people that have signed up, and I will ask right now Ken Dale if he will come forward first to speak in favor of the project.
My name is Kenneth Deal, 1212 Rosa Drive, Monroe. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out that the project that was just presented to you doesn't look anything like what the planning board saw, with the exception of the shape of the land. The developer reached out to the planning board members and asked us what we wanted to see in this development, and we, quite frankly, told him what we wanted. The reason I chose to speak was not to beef up the developer. He can speak for himself. It was to point out to each and every one of you the benefit of the developer working closely with the planning board, hearing what we say, and trying to work with us. And particularly when the property is an annexation, this is a piece of property that has never paid a penny in taxes to the citizens of Monroe to help the city. We accept all burden. If you look in your staffing report, it'll be 5 years before you'll reap any benefit by the cost of fire, police, emergency, and all the indemnities that the city brings, not to mention that the property is worth fivefold once annexed. It also gives the people in the 500 home, tiny lot neighborhood in phase one nice homes they can move up to as their families grow and they look for a little better piece of property, but they generally like the area. So I signed up in favor of the project because this is a responsible developer that wants to bring good developments to Monroe. As long as we maintain our endeavor to get good quality developments. The developers are not going to run away. They will conform to what we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Satish? Vankim? I'm sorry, Satish, if I did not pronounce it. Help me out.
My name is Satish Vankinini.
Okay.
My address is 100 King Street.
Okay.
Nothing much to say. I just favor this development of this community. That's it I have.
Okay. Thank you very much. David Dotson.
My name is David Dotson. I live on Fox Hunt Estates. I want to give you this because I don't know if it's part of your packet. I'm sorry for the what the project looked like before.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to take that back up. The
Okay.
council can't be given anything that's either a comment or anything that's not in the
This
packet.
is from the packet that went to planning board.
Well, that's the packet that went to council is what matters. I would have to
Okay.
ask staff if they could tell us, was that part of the packet provided to the council? Sorry.
Okay. Well, I won't go over what Mr. Deal said. I won't repeat it, but I will tell you this. The original Waxhaw Phase 3 was proposed by a different person to the planning board, and it left the planning board much like it came into planning board. Very few changes. The developer reached out. He's an open-minded gentleman who reached out to each one of us and wanted to know exactly what we thought that this development needed. I would say this, the proposal in front of you tonight is a result of Mr. Eisenbee's and some of the planning board members working together to address the deficiencies that caused the original recommendation for denial. That's why I'm speaking to you tonight. I feel that I owe the council a explanation of why you got a denial on a project that is vastly different and vastly improved. That's not the kind of work that I think the planning board wants to do, but we're kind of hamstrung with what we get. We can't make people make changes. We can't make them make changes at the meeting so that we can send it to you with conditions. And I just want you to understand this is vastly different than what we saw. And I can't tell if it would have passed, but it looks a lot better than it did. And I want you to know why there was a denial. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the project? Yep.
We have, she's got it open here. That's it right there. Oh. Let's see if there's that right here. But, that little symbol right up, not above. Here, do it. I'm using a map. Oh, I got you. There you go.
To the notes version or not? Oh, yeah, all right. Mayor, councilman, council members, appreciate your time this evening, letting us speak for a few minutes. My name is Mark Eisenbeis, 1526 Greenwood Street, Raleigh, and here with my colleague Kyle DiFittorum. And as you know, we've been working on this project for a long time, and we saw the types of projects that were being approved over the last couple of years, and we tried to follow suit. And in February, we presented a plan to the planning board that included 190 single-family detached lots, all the same width, narrow, 51 feet wide, very little in the way of amenities. And the planning board recommended denial, and you know they did their job, and we actually appreciate that because they helped us understand that the vision for Monroe was evolving, and that we needed to take that into consideration. So we went back into the market, did more research. We found that there was a real need for more upscale housing, and particularly that move-up buyer is being neglected in the market. And so, as some members from the planning board said, we tried to reach back out and find out exactly what we could do to fulfill that vision going forward, because it is in flux right now. And so the
plan we're presenting this evening is a result of that collaboration. This may be a little bit easier to see with all the lots colored. And so we'll just take a quick flyby through the neighborhood. We should rehash some of those. Okay. All right, so the 80-foot lots are in purple here. We'll zoom in. They're all located in the front of the neighborhood. As previously mentioned, they are all going to be required to be side-loaded garages. And we wanted to place these up at the front of the community intentionally to offer a better presentation to those traveling along NC 75. The 60-foot lots are highlighted in yellow here, and they're spread throughout the community because we wanted to create more diversity, both in terms of price points, but the types of buyers, and we wanted to have them mingle more easily. We really wanted to focus on building a sense of community here. And then lastly, the 55-foot lots are primarily located, in the back area around the primary amenity complex. I live on a, that was intentional, well, that was intentional because we wanted to try to get as many residents as close to the amenities as possible.
You should just probably ask the rest of council if they want to.
And then the amenities is Carrie mentioned, we've got a 4-acre, huge 4-acre multi-purpose field that can be used for a number of uses. We've just, for scale purposes, we've thrown on the measurements of the fields, 50 by 100 feet, so we can fit many different activities in here pretty easily. Just some examples: recreation, parties. We see in other neighborhoods where we have similar complexes, families will rent inflatables and they'll have parties with, but they have the space then to be able to use these extra features. You want to cut? No, there's something. Oh, we got to cut it? Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can cycle through the rest of the amenities, but I think Carrie did a pretty good job of showcasing them. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant?
Would you consider renaming the project?
Oh, great question. And so, yes, this was not intended to be a part of Waxhaw Landing. I think it sent out some information of how we became affiliated with it or associated with it. We were both working on bringing water to the site, and we needed help of Waxhaw Landing to reconfigure itself to accommodate our internal connections. And so just by virtue of its proximity and that close collaboration, we became associated with it. Our intent is to name it Browning Farm after the longtime owners of the property. But we're not sharing any sort of amenities or marketing or anything else like that. I mean, I guess there's a small chance that the same builder that's in Waxhaw Landing could end up being our builder as well, and then that would be up to them whether they would want to bring it into the fold, but it is not our intent to do so. We plan on having a separate homeowners association and everything that goes along with that. So thank you very much for that question.
So you do not have a builder?
No, not yet. We've selected our elevations from a number of builders that we've been speaking with who have been unwilling to commit until we're able to offer a firm concept plan so that they know what they're going to be building. But we know that all the builders that we're talking to can build the elevations that we've provided. And we've actually, this is our third or fourth round of elevation concepts, which we've gotten plenty of feedback from the planning board on those. And we feel really good about the high quality level of these designs.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in favor that did not sign up? For those that are opposed, we have one, Mr. Bob Yanachek. I was here earlier.
Maybe in the other room.
Bob Yanachek.
My name is Bob Yanachek, 513 Everett Street, and I was at the meeting for this original project, and it's definitely different, and I commend the developer for making the changes. And I think in light of recent events with the reconsiderations of projects and developers, and looking at the plot, the person who presented this case is not the same person that presented it the first time. Mr. Kirshner with Eagle Engineering presented that first one, and we still use the same plot that's on this development. I also make sure that there's a difference. In all transparency, I also would like the public to know that there is a connection between Mr. Kirshner and our mayor, who's sitting on the council be voting. Back in 2019, the mayor sold Mr. Kirshner his lot next to him, and currently resides at 2633A, while the mayor resides at 2633. My request is, in all transparency, is before you vote on something, is let the public know. I'd also like to recuse yourself from any Eagle Engineering project or Mr. Kirshner. So, like I said, you can shake your head, that's fine, but I just think in a time of transparency, if we want to move forward, make sure that your voice is heard. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Mayor, since Mr. Yanchek has raised a conflict issue, and he doesn't need to be at the podium.
Well, if you're,
I'm sorry.
no, see,
Yeah,
I do get a chance to
excuse me.
respond.
Mr. Yanchek,
Go ahead, sir.
you've had your time.
I didn't get my 3
This
minutes.
is now, no, you don't have to, well, the thing is, once you walk away from the podium, you're done.
Okay, I will listen to your
Now, no, but you
I'll
don't
listen
have to
to
do
it.
it from the podium. Mayor, the only time, as the council's aware from having dealt with this issue last week, when you have the requirement to consider excusing yourself, is if there is a matter involving your official conduct or direct financial impact. Now, Mr. Yanchek is suggesting because in the past you sold a lot to a person, that means you have a financial conflict. I would note if you asked for that opinion from me, I would say, unless you're continuing to receive funding related to the sale of the lot, the answer would be no, and you are not obliged to request council to excuse you. You could ask council to consider doing it. My recommendation would be you are not obliged to do that.
It's the sale and the neighbor.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Yanchek, as we said, you were completed, and this is for the council, not for you, sir.
Oh, I absolutely agree, and it's for the public, not the council. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I will make a statement to how this transaction came about. We were blessed to have some excess land around our house. Very thankful for that. Our next door neighbor at that time, who happens to be Mr. Kirshner's father-in-law, mentioned to my wife and myself, if you ever decide to sell this land between our two houses, I think our daughter and our son-in-law, who happens to be Mr. Kirshner, would like to buy it because we'd like to have our daughter live next door to us. That's a wonderful thing, folks. So we hadn't planned on selling it, but I know how I'd like to have one of my daughters living beside us, or both of them. That doesn't look like it's going to happen, but that's how that whole thing came about. Was actually our neighbor approached us, who's been our neighbor for many, many years. If you're going to sell it or thinking about it, we'd like to, our daughter and son-in-law buy it. So that's where it came from. Totally above board, totally innocent. Nothing to see here. Move along, folks. But if council feels like I need to recuse myself, I'll be happy to.
Absolutely.
Call for the question.
Okay. Being no other speakers, I will close the public hearing and move to take action.
Mayor, I move that the petition met the requirements.
Oh, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by raising your hand, please. Okay, that motion carries.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Second.
Oh, we have a motion to adopt the ordinance and a second. Those in favor, raise your hand, please.
Motion to adopt resolution approving land development plan compliance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution approving the land development plan compliance. Those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the ordinance and a second. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, excuse me, signify by raising your hand. Is that everyone? I didn't. Okay. And
Motion to approve agreement.
I second.
I have a motion to approve the agreement and a second. Those in favor, raise your hand.
Motion to authorize interim city manager to execute documents.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand again, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Doug Britt will now present the next item, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Doug Britt in the Planning Department. And tonight I'm presenting a annexation, zoning map, and zoning text amendment request by NVR Incorporated for the properties located along Old Pageland Monroe Road. The applicant is requesting annexation and conditional district rezoning in order to develop a 259-lot residential subdivision. The total area of the project is 85.94 acres. The subject property you see is outlined in blue and has frontage along Old Pageland Road and also butts up against, which this is the part you see the lots, it's kind of hard to see here, but this is the I guess you want to call it phase one of Cottage Green, and Cottage Green phase one extends all the way to this common property line between the two projects. The subject property is zoned R20, and as you can see, the orange line is the current city limits. It is colored, so it's outside of our city limits, but within our ETJ, which is our sphere of influence that we have zoning control over. The properties to the east are R20. To the south is RA20 Union County. To the west is conditional district Cottage Green, and to the north is R20 as well. This is a site plan. Again, this area here to the left over here, this is all of phase one or Cottage Green 1. And then everything over here obviously is Cottage Green 2. And out here to the far right is Old Pageland Monroe Road, where they propose to have one access. There'll be two internal accesses that will be they'll connect Cottage Green 1 and Cottage Green 2 to each other. The applicant is requesting conditional district to develop a 259-lot age-targeted residential subdivision that will consist of single-family detached homes with approximately 31.5% or 27 acres of open space. The minimum lot size for the project will be 6,250 square feet with a range up to 27,000 square feet. Developers propose a mixture of lot types will include 50-foot as well as 60-foot wide lots. The density of the project is 3.01 units per acre. As stated, there will be 50-foot lots as well as 60-foot lots. There will be 208 50-foot lots and 51 of the 60-foot wide lots. The setbacks of the project will be a 20-foot front setback, a side setback of 5 foot, and a 30-foot rear setback. And as stated, there will be one access off of Old Pageland Road and then two internal access points. The developer proposed 5-foot sidewalks on all the interior streets, as well as there will be an 8-foot sidewalk along the frontage of Old Pageland Monroe Road. All homes will have side front yards, and each home will have at least 1 yard in a tree, and as well as 1 street tree. Street trees will be throughout the development. The open space required is a minimum of 12.5%, but in this case, that would equate to 10.74 acres. The applicants provide 31% or 31.5% or 27 acres. The amenity area will be located, they'll have amenity area at this location here, which will be the main amenity area, which will have a pool, as well as with the amenity area, there will be a pavilion area with picnic tables and fire pits and a grilling area, as well as a dog park. But you have amenity area at this location here, as this location here, and down here as far as amenity area. There is 1 stream located on the site, and it's required by the ordinance. They did provide a 50-foot buffer, which is in this area at this location. You can see at this point in time, they are proposing a stormwater feature at this location and this location, as well as a stormwater. If the project is approved, the stormwater will be reviewed and approved during the building permit stage. So this is just conceptual based on grades and topo. This is more than likely where they'll be in this general area, but the full size and the exact shape of them will be determined once they submit for their building permits and construction plans. The project is proposed to be accessed, as I stated, by 1 access off Old Page on Monroe Road, as well as 2 internal connections. Developer is proposing to have the project have publicly maintained streets by the city of Monroe. A traffic impact study was completed for this project and was reviewed by NCDOT and the City of Monroe Engineering Department. And the recommendations that come out of the traffic study would be to install a left turn lane onto Old Pageant Road to turn off of Old Pageant Road into the site, as well as a right deceleration lane to turn off of Pageant Road into the site as well. The other transportation improvement, and obviously I'm at Highway 74 and 71. This is the Hilltop Plaza here and the Jack in the Box. The other traffic improvement that come out of the traffic study, they will be required to do install a device. It can either be a concrete median or the plastic stick that the DOT will put in the roads. And this will allow a continuous right turn movement if you're turning off of 74 onto 601. And you might say, why that? Because you have the left turn that's going to be turning left from 74 onto 601 South. And so what this will allow is, by having this protected right turn, that you can always turn right. There will be no yield to be able to turn right off of 74 onto 601 South. And the reason being because of the left turn moment here. So they put a protected device here to allow the continuous movement of that right turn lane off 74 onto 601 South. These are example elevations that were proposed for the site. The exterior building materials will consist of brick, fiber, cement, stone, stucco. Developers proposing the front facade to consist of at least 25% brick or stone. Vinyl will only be used for the eaves and soffits. The minimum heated square footage will be 1,425 square feet, excluding the garages. Houses built on slab foundation shall have a minimum of 4-course brick extend up the slab on all 4 sides, and all houses will have 2-car garages. Garages will have Carrier-style hardware. The 1,425 square feet, that's the same square footage we did for phase 1 of Cottage Green, and so they asked for the same square footage and process in this project as well. And granted, and just like with anything, the 1,425 is the minimum square foot. They can obviously do more. And then, you know, I know some people say, well, does that mean they could do all of them at 1,425? They can, but I'll say in Cottage Green 1, as far as, you know, in looking at their permits when we do it, they range from 1,425 to over, they could get a little over 2,500 square feet too, though. So some of their houses, they do well above the 1,425. The project does fall within the Rockrest Elementary, East Union Middle, and Forest Hills High School. Rockrest has a current capacity of 85%. East Union has a capacity of 62%, and Forest Hills has a capacity of 59%. Per Union County Public Schools, this project is not expected to have an adverse effect on enrollments at the schools. The Water Resource Department has communicated extensive comments and requirements to the developer regarding the potential water and sewer service to this subdivision. Should council approve the project, staff recommends approval of the attached developer agreement for phase sewer permitting and water meter sets. This agreement will allow the city to take proactive steps to prevent over-allocation of capacity, whether on paper or actual flow as experienced by surrounding jurisdictions. The project on the land use map does fall within the suburban classification. The suburban classification talks about having a mix of use of lot types as well as housing styles, and has a projected density range of 2 to 4 units per acre. This project is consistent with that density range at 3.01 units per acre. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting via Zoom on October 5th, as well as city staff did notify the public 10 days prior to the public hearing by posting the property, as well as mailing out approximately 50 letters to adjacent property owners. This project was presented to the Plan Board in March. The Plan Board did unanimously recommend approval of the project with 2 conditions. One, the tree size for the street trees and the yard trees be a minimum of 2.5 inches in caliper. And 2, that the elevations presented at Plan Board be the same elevations moved forward to council. And reason being for that, the elevations they originally presented to staff, that staff sent to the Plan Board was different than what they proposed at Plan Board. And the ones I showed you tonight was the ones that presented at Plan Board, and Plan Board liked those better than the ones that I was originally provided. So they had conditioned that those would be the elevations that would be represented for the presentation at council. So that's what I showed you. As well as for the tree size modification to increase to 2.5 inches caliper was reflected on the site plan that was in your packet this evening. And it stated, so Plan Board and staff do recommend approval of the project, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any of me at this time.
Anybody have questions for Doug, please? Okay. This is thank you, Doug. This is a public hearing, and there's no one signed up for or against, but if the applicant would like to speak, certainly be glad to entertain that.
Do we do that? Okay, all right. They have a video that let me show this. It's part of their PowerPoint, but it's a short, I think probably 2.5 minute video, so I'm going to go ahead and start it.
Cottage Green 2 is a continuation of Cottage Green Phases 1 and 2, which have been sold out due to exceptionally high demand.
We live in Cottage Green in Monroe, North Carolina. We chose this because of the
Cottage Green 2 is a continuation of Cottage Green Phases 1 and 2, which have been sold out due to exceptionally high demand.
We live in Cottage Green in Monroe, North Carolina. We chose this because of the convenience of both the golf course and the hospital up the street. We also like the fact that they take care of our yard, and it's a much smaller house here. We have downsized and semi-retired here.
My husband and I were looking to move, and we looked at a number of houses, and we just didn't really find anything that we liked, and we hadn't even considered a new build until we came out to Cottage Green and looked at the Ryan Home homes. And we wanted to downsize and have mostly first floor living. That's mainly what we were looking for. And we came out here, we love the area, we love the style of our home.
My husband and I both work locally here in Monroe, and we're first-time home buyers, so getting a neighborhood that was newer with low maintenance, but also including lawn care, and having a nice fence for our dogs was a big key for us. It's definitely a diverse neighborhood. We have people that can be our mentors, but also people that have
We were looking for a house, we were tired of rent, paying rent was unreasonable. So we found Cottage Green, and for a brand new house, honestly, you couldn't beat the price. Everything else we were looking at was old and abused, same price, so we went with a brand new house for the same price. And, I mean, we weren't disappointed one bit.
We've got families across the street, we've got a mom beside us, we've got older folks to the right of us, so it's a good mix of people
but they're all kind of, hey, how are you? Hey, how's your little one? Or she's getting so big. So it's nice to be able to like resonate with different types of homes.
The new energy-efficient homes will be a blend of 2- and single-story dwellings and offered with multiple looks, colors, and designs. They'll have classy amenities such as a clubhouse, communal pool area, luxury fire pits, and designer kitchens and baths. The lovely cottage-style houses will be priced in the 400,000s and will also include full landscape maintenance and strong HOA restrictions to ensure community standards are maintained and the grounds remain beautiful.
Lawn maintenance has been wonderful. They come weekly to mow our grass. They take care of the pine straw. It's honestly been a breeze.
I don't get a lot of time at home, and when I do, I like to spend it with my little one and my family. So the lawn care, it honestly is like one of the greatest things ever. They take care of a lot more than just that. They do pine needles and stuff like that, so we don't really have to worry about a lot.
This age target will appeal to those 55 or older and will raise the tax base by about $105 million.
This is a beautiful place for people to retire. We're near hospitals, we're near doctor's offices. It's a quiet town. When we get older, we don't need no party town. Good access to 485, to the bypass, 74. Monroe didn't have new places, new homes to move in to find. We needed people like you guys. Monroe needs to grow.
Cottage Green 2, your best move in Monroe, North Carolina.
Didn't know there was a career for Spiro in Hollywood. Yes, sir.
My name is Charles Soleil, and my address is 6200 Glenmore Lakes Drive, that's in Charlotte. And I wanted to share a few thoughts with you. Let me see if I can operate this thing here. Yeah. Okay. I know you guys have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'm going to try and be as brief as I can. And just want to highlight some of the points that we shared with the planning board, and I'd like to share the same points with you. First of all, it is a continuation of the existing Cottage Green. And the reason why I want to mention that is not what we're going to do, it's what we've already done. So I apologize about the voice or the video that you couldn't hear, because there's a lot of good points in the video, so I don't have to repeat what the video said. So that's the first one. The second one is that it's when you start thinking about what happened to us in the first cottage one, is that the demand has been overwhelming and it is sold out. Now we can't keep up with it. And usually that's a good sign from the market, because we are taking the risk, to be honest with you, going east, and I'm going to highlight that for you. One of the things I remember, keep in mind, we started this project in 2017, so it's been in the works for a while. And we took a risk going east of the city because most of the growth has been going west of the city. So that was a big risk on us, and we are happy to say that we succeeded and it's going well, and the demand is there. So I wanted to say that was also a goal of the city at the time when we discussed that the intent was to go east. And what we have here is also from what you saw, the renderings or the pictures of the houses. One of the things we heard loud and clear is that we want to make sure that they're different sizes, different colors, different looks to them, and that's what we wanted to do. We have 5 amenities And I'll show you some of the amenities in there. We have a clubhouse, we have a pool house, we have the fire pit, we have a dog park, and we have a children park. Seems that my eyes are going, I can't read it from the small screen here. Yeah, one of the things that we have been working on very carefully is to make sure that the looks of the neighborhood is good. This neighborhood is a little bit unique because part of the HOA dues that everyone pays includes the landscaping of the homes. So one of the things you have not heard, oh, it's not, okay. One of the things that you have not heard from the video that well is the fact that how happy these owners are, because they don't have to mess with the landscaping or anything. It's all taken care of by the HOA. That's good for two reasons. One is it attracts people to the neighborhood. Number two, it makes sure that the neighborhood stays the way it needs to be. This way it's controlled and everybody looks the same. And probably the best one of them all is that how much it generates for you guys, for the city. The new phase is going to be generating somewhere over $100 million in tax value. The overall project will generate about $180 million in tax value. So these are some of the features. I'm going to go through the rest of those fairly quick. I'm not going to repeat what Doug has showed you. This is kind of the pink is all the amenities. This is showing some of the buffer. The open space. These are the pictures. I'll go through them quickly. I want to show you the pictures of the amenities. Pool area. The children park. The fire pit. And we thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nice presentation. Anyone else to speak in favor or in opposition? If not, I'll close this public hearing and move to take action, please.
Motion that petition met requirements.
I second.
All right, you have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by raising your hand, please. Okay.
Motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
You have a motion to adopt the ordinance and a second. Those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Motion to adopt resolution approving land development plan compliance.
Second it.
I have a motion and second. Those in favor, raise your hand, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
I second it.
Okay. Those in favor, we got a motion and a second. Those in favor, raise your hand, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance amending conditional districts established.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay.
Motion to
approve agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. Those in favor signify by raising your hand, please.
Motion to authorize interim city manager to execute documents.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Those in favor signify by raising your hand, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Second.
Okay, a motion to adopt the ordinance and a second. Those in favor signify by raising your hand, please. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask with your indulgence maybe for a 10-minute recess, and we'll come back at 7:30 if that's okay. We'll be reconvening in just a couple of seconds.
He's still gonna give you a ticket.
I deserve it.
We're waiting for one council person, but while we were waiting, I will say, when I was a young boy many years ago, I think work started on this revised UDO, and tonight, no, it has been not a long, strange trip, but it's been a long trip with a lot of study. Staff has spent countless hours. We've had some of the best minds in that business to help guide us through this process. We've had, I can't tell you how many, and maybe Lisa might refer to this, how many public forums, chances for people to speak for or against what changes they'd like to have. Do you have a timeline that you'll be showing, Lisa? Okay, I mean, if somebody has a question. But basically, it's an exciting time. I think we all need to remember, we have addressed this before, we strive to be perfect, but none of us are. When the framers of the Constitution of our great country thought they had done all the work they needed to do, they didn't realize that 27 times it would be amended. And you've even got judges amending it without amendments. So, but this is a live document. It is a document that conditions change and times change. It will change along with that. Just keep that in mind. Nothing is set in concrete and permanent. We all know, and I've referred to it several times, many of y'all have heard me say, the only constant we have in our life is change. And we want to embrace this change. This is an effort to bring more order and good change for all of our citizens. And that's the reason we have spent the time on that. But tonight I will recognize Lisa Stylewinter, head of our planning, to start us off here. Ms. Lisa.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Stylewinter, Director of Planning and Development with the City of Monroe, and I would like to bring before you a zoning map and text amendment request to rezone properties located within the city limits of Monroe and the extraterritorial jurisdiction, as well as adopt Chapter 157 to establish a new Unified Development Ordinance. The city's existing Unified Development Ordinance and zoning map dates back to 2003. It does not reflect best zoning and planning practices, or does it, or steady changes in demographics or development patterns. The new Unified Development Ordinance has been branded as Transform Monroe, and the purpose for Transform Monroe is to develop a clear and user-friendly Unified Development Ordinance that is consistent with city plans and policies and implements goals and recommendations that from our Ford Monroe Land Use and Transportation Plan that was adopted in 2018. The Ford Monroe, the Land Use and Transportation Plan, is basically your long-range planning document that envisions how you grow and develop for the next 20, 30 years. Part of the Ford Monroe Land Use Plan update was an action plan was developed as part of that, and the action plan provides a set of recommendations within the land use plan. And one of the most important recommendations to implement the Ford Monroe land use plan is to complete Transform Monroe, and basically that's the rewrite to the Unified Development Ordinance and zoning map update to codify and adopt zoning and development standards that assist in implementing the future land use and transportation plan. Once again, the new UDO and zoning map serves as the most important implementation strategy for your land use plan. New UDO responds to the community values, goals, policies, and strategies that were identified in that plan in 2018. These are some of the goals and objectives, and I'm not going to go over all of those, but basically our goal was to provide more predictable set of land use regulations, provide more graphics and illustrations, update the format and structure for the new Unified Development Ordinance, and of course incorporate new and innovative zoning and land development strategies, and develop new zoning districts as well. So the zoning map and text amendment request was presented at the October 12th, 2021 City Council meeting. City Council did vote to table the new UDO and zoning map to address additional modifications to the ordinance. So over the last 6 months, we have been reviewing and receiving feedback to address some of those comments that were mentioned during the October meeting. I'd like to now turn it over to Kelly Klepper with Kimley Horn and Associates that has been assisting the city through the development of this project. He will go over the overview of the new Unified Development Ordinance and zoning map, as well as the changes from the October meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, Mayor, council members. For the record, Kelly Klepper with Kimley Horn and Associates. And as Lisa said, we're going to kind of walk through a couple of things. One, we're going to talk through and primarily focus on those items that were brought up at the council's hearing back in October. The items that we heard at that meeting, things that we needed to kind of take another look at, relook at, but more importantly, also just take another kind of deep dive to make sure we were all on the same page. So what you're going to see tonight is a combination of those efforts in an effort to make sure that the document is understood with the changes that we identified. We did what we typically try to do at a finished document level, which was we did an underline and strike through version that was provided to the city so that it was easy to see exactly what had changed, everything from the smallest renumbering or reordering of a specific item to brand new text. And as we go through the items tonight, I'm going to point out a lot of significant changes that I think the council is going to be appreciative of. So as Lisa said, what is Transform Monroe? I'm not going to go into a lot of this because she's already stated it, but basically this is your Unified Development Ordinance moving forward. This is the combination of, as Lisa said and as the mayor said, a lot of outreach, a lot of efforts, a lot of man hours, a lot of comments, and more importantly, reflecting changes that have occurred both at the state level through the 160D changes as well as best planning practices. One of the things that you'll start to see as we're talking through this is that just like a lot of other communities, your UDO was good, but it had been fixed by Band-Aids over and over and over again. Inconsistencies, items missing, incorrect references. Not saying anything was wrong with that, but what we started to look at was what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about, especially as it relates to 160D, the new state legislation that says thou shalt do this, this, and this. So what we started to look at early on was reorganization of the UDO. There were 18 different sections that you can see on the left-hand side, and what we recommended was to consolidate those into the 11 that you see, creating some new ones, combination of others, and putting like terms and like types of things together so it's easier from a readability and a flow perspective. What were the major changes that came out of the initial UDO components? The creation of the mixed-use districts, and those reflected the forward Monroe land use and transportation plan, including the character areas. We updated and provided parking standards, signage, non-residential design standards. So what would commercial and office and also industrial buildings look like moving forward? Increased and enhanced landscape and buffer standards, use definitions, and we'll talk about those a little bit more, but basically what it is identifying specific uses that are provided or permitted within certain zoning districts throughout the city, and then saying exactly what those are, what the kind of things that you can expect to go with that, so that there's no room for interpretation or very limited room for interpretation. There again, we're trying to clarify terms as we're going through to make this a much more user-friendly type of UDO. So what has changed since October? The information that you see here. So we took a deeper dive in on Section 3 with the administration, and we'll talk about each of these in detail in just a second. Section 4, just confirming and reaffirming the traditional zoning districts, especially as it relates to the rural residential. Some of the bigger changes, of course, were landscaping, and sections 8.3 dealing with buffer widths, tree preservation protection standards, and also permit and applications, as well as those items that are identified from a plant list and more of a clarification of where those items can occur. So there again, the online version has and provides a strike through and underline. It's broken up into sections by staff. There's also clean copies as well as the zoning map, so that it was easier to understand what we were changing and why. So if we look at Section 3, Section 3334, those deal with the review and decision-making bodies. Basically, that is the who. That is the TRC, that is the staff, that is the planning board, that is the city council, it's the historic board. We identified and clarified roles, responsibilities for each of those groups. And then the review processes. That's everything that the city does, whether it's administrative, all the way through to the public hearing process. Identification of rezonings, comprehensive plan or land use map amendments, text amendments, variances through the Board of Adjustments, applications for historic properties, all the way including the process types, including annexation, which is also, as your city attorney will say, is regulated by the legislature of North Carolina. So there's a different process, but all of that is identified in that specific section there. There again, what we did was to look at the makeup of the bodies, what they're doing, how they do it, and what are the processes that go with it, including the mailings and notification processes. Traditional zoning districts. We want to focus in on 4.2 and 4.5. Although these did not change since October, we wanted to re-emphasize these for a couple of different reasons. One, there was a lot of questions, a lot of confusion that the R40, which was your previous zoning, which is in essence one dwelling unit per acre, had been taken away. We had recommended a modification of that. However, based on information from this group as well as others, it went back in as the rural residential, still one dwelling unit per acre and similar types of design and development standards. Planned districts, which we'll talk about as well in just a second. But when we look at the residential districts, there again, no change since October, but just a reaffirmation that we do have the residential rural, which is the one dwelling unit per acre, the RLD, which is 2, that was the equivalent of your R20, all the way up through to your residential high, and also the plan unit development. You may be asking, what is the plan unit development? Similar to what you heard earlier tonight with those applications, it's a little bit more creative way that the city has to work with developments, whether it's on the reconfiguration or differences of lot sizes, variations in lot sizes, amount of open space. We start looking at a couple of different things as it relates to uses, and densities, and all that. But there are trade-offs that come about as part of that. One, it's a very detailed-oriented process. Two, is a very I'll say engineering and planning specific process, so that a lot of information is being prepared and presented all the way from the initial applications all the way through to the time it comes to city council, all of which there again through the public hearing process. But there again, there are trade-offs. In order for you to be able to do something, what is the city getting in return? In this case, we're talking about enhanced recreation and open space components that the city currently has right now. We've expanded on those. We've also put in certain expirations for approvals, and more importantly, the design standards. Section 8.7 actually provides standards both for single-family houses, similar to what Doug was talking about earlier, multifamily structures, as well as the non-residential components. Section 5, we wanted to kind of call this out there. Again, no change since October. It's not changed a whole lot since we went through the planning board. But basically, these are consistent with the land use and transportation plan, those character areas where we're talking about our mixed-use centers, where we're talking about those core areas where we're trying to engage and encourage a mix of uses, both vertically and horizontally. Residential, office, commercial, all within a unified setting. Those have been identified around the core intersections of the city, including 74 and some of those other areas. Again, the boundaries of this are consistent with and correspond with those that were identified as part of your land use and transportation plan. For those of you who weren't here at that time, the map that you see, and I apologize, it's a little difficult to see the different colorations, but those equate to the respective mixed-use districts that we have. And these are more of a form-based type of district in the fact that it's not only the use and the standards, but there's forms that are involved with it. So we get into the proximity of the buildings to the streets. We get into enhanced landscaping, parking designs, building designs. We get into a lot of different features, very similar to what you would assume as part of a plan unit development. There again, focusing in on the core growth areas identified per the land use and the transportation plan itself. Supplemental regulations. So we wanted to focus in on 8.3 and 8.8. 8.3 is the landscaping, buffering, fences, and walls section. 8.8 being the open space standards themselves. Why did we want to talk about that? There was a lot of discussion throughout this process of what are we doing, how are we doing it, what's it going to look like, especially from the outside looking in. So one of the things that we started to talk about early on was what are the areas that we have, what type of buffer needs to be between. So based off of input from City Council, we went back and we looked at a couple of things. And what you'll see is your zoning districts going across the top and the bottom, or excuse me, the side and the top. And then a series of numbers. The numbers correspond to a specific type of buffer that we will show you here in just a second. So even though you are exactly the same zoning district side by side, you still have a buffer required. The minimum buffer that we have at this point, and we'll talk about that in just a second, is a 15. And I will tell you that's the number one. There's only 2 places where that's allowed, and that's between the heavy industrial and the light industrial. Even if you are a rural residential, so that 1 dwelling unit per acre, you're still talking about something that is a minimum of 20 feet wide as far as a buffer is concerned. We go from our buffers of 15 feet, which is our smallest, and you'll see those graphics in just a second, all the way up to 100 feet. All of which are based off of what is existing, what's proposed, and what is it going to look like at the end of the day. So we did make some changes to what was initially discussed. If you are a type 3 buffer, and just to kind of give you an idea, a type 3 buffer would be if you were a low density next to a medium density. So, something like a very low single family detached with maybe a project that would actually permit townhouses, but still at a relatively low density. That type 3 requires a minimum 25-foot wide buffer between each of those. And within a 100-foot stretch, you're required to have no less than 3 trees, plus the understory, plus the shrubs, plus a fence. So we're talking about something that's residential to residential having that. Now, and it actually goes off the screen here, number 5, that is where we have industrial pretty much up against either office, residential, or something else. That's the 100-foot wide buffer. It requires a berm, it requires wall, it requires a lot of extra trees, and you'll see a graphic of that in just a moment. So what does it look like? So this itself that you see right here is actually the type 2 buffer. That's a 20-foot wide, and you measure it from the edge of the property into the development. So what you would see is not necessarily, let's say that you were on the roadway looking in, you're going to be looking at the shrubs, at the trees, and then the fence. The fence is on the inside of the property. What we wanted to do is to make sure that somebody could not just do the fence on the outside and put the trees on the inside for the residents to enjoy. They can still do that, but we wanted those people that were going to be walking by, driving by, whatever, to see the trees, the shrubs, and everything moving forward, and then the wall behind that. There again, this one's a minimum of 20 feet. Some of the others that you see here, the type 3 is the bottom right. That's 25 feet. And then the other one, of course, is a type 4, and it pushes us up to a 50-foot. Now, you can actually do what we call meandering the trees, so they don't have to all be in an exact same row. You can make them wave through. You can also do some clustering and some groupings. But there again, these are the minimum standards. This is not in your current UDO. This is a new standard that we've proposed and we're adding in from a compatibility standpoint and also for a couple of other reasons. Tree preservation, and I know this was a big topic, so 838, and when I say it's been expanded, when you start thinking about tree preservation and protection, we actually have over 10 pages of tree preservation and protection measures, which is actually more than we have parking, more than we have of signs, and more than we have of some other types of design and development standards. We heard loud and clear, trees are important. So what you'll start to see are, we recognize the importance of the existing trees. We've identified that if you are going to remove trees, there are processes, and there's penalties associated with it. It's not just the ability to go out and remove a tree, and guess what, we're done. No, actually, Chapter 160D provides municipalities the ability to do withhold approvals and permits between 3 and 5 years, depending on the severity of the violation. We've instituted that within the UDO as well, so we've carried that language over, and that's consistent with other municipalities across the state. So, there again, we are looking at not only the limiting of the pruning, but also the mitigation. We're talking about a certain number of preservation plans, whether it's a preservation plan to identify where the trees are on the site as part of your project, but also what are you going to be replanting. There are standards for protection of what we call the critical root zone. So making sure that somebody does not go in and grade up against the base of the tree and kill the roots, so that the trees will remain healthy and in a healthy state. We talk about and identify pre-application meetings with the staff. We do have put in there permits required for the removal of trees and also those penalties. Tree replacement is not just a one-for-one or a like situation where you can kind of pay a fund and go. Depending on the size of the tree, there is actually a multiplier effect, either 1.25 to 1.5 times the width of what was removed. So there again, if it was a 10-inch tree that was removed, you could be looking anywhere between 12 to 15 inches of tree having to be replaced with minimum standards. Not just a tree that's this size, but a tree that's actually of a decent size, and we actually call it out in the UDO, that will be able to grow and develop, especially in the situations that we're talking about. And there again, we are talking about the preservation plans that are required. So if you have a plan unit development coming through, two parts of that application are the preservation of the trees and also the replanting. Those are two key components. We also put in there provisions regarding trees that are 24 inches or greater. Trees that are 75 inches or greater basically are the thou shalt not touch trees, except under very, very, very limited situations. The other thing that we put in here is that if any reason after a tree permit and plan's approved and a tree dies, the developer has to notify and mitigate for those trees afterwards. So there are those components that the city and the staff may approve a plan, additional trees may die for whatever reason or be removed. It is incumbent upon them at that point, and also the staff, to identify those trees, and at that point the additional measures kick in as well. From an open space perspective, there again, no change, but we wanted to make sure that there were enhancements to this and the provision for both the active and passive recreation, those usable open spaces. Open space should not be a stormwater pond. If it is, it needs to be set up as an amenity. It needs to have certain public edge features. It needs to meet certain standards. So what we're saying is, every community, if you're going to be residential, then there is a certain percentage, even all the way up through to planned development. There are certain percentages. Depending on the size of the property and the project, kicks into a certain amount and type of park and recreation facilities, whether it's a series of what we call small parks, like pocket parks, greens, we go all the way up through to the larger linear parks, neighborhood parks, all of which have certain design and development standards and parameters that are called out for in the UDO. From the zoning map perspective, and I apologize, it's going to be a little confusing because we did change the colors. So this was your existing zoning map, and the gray that you see on there is a large portion of the R20, noting that most of that is outside the city limits. There is a portion of the R20, and then the R40 is the tan or that very kind of light beige color. Unfortunately, a lot of those areas were actually identified through the land use and transportation plan as being your core areas, your character areas for those mixed use centers. But what you're going to see when we changed everything over, the yellow that you see here is that low density, so the 2 dwelling units per acre. When you kind of see I'm going to call it the olive green, and there again, it's a little more difficult to see on this. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can do this. Give me a second. Read it where. That is, again, it's hard to see, but that color there, those areas, those are the rural residential. So that's the 1 dwelling unit per acre. These areas, which are the lighter, those were the R20, that 2 dwelling units per acre, and these are proposed to be the low density, 2 units an acre. So, except for a couple of the core areas that we're showing here, and then portions along 74, we married up to the zoning that was there. There again, a couple of these areas where we have our core areas as far as those interchanges and intersections are concerned, those are the mixed use centers that we have, and those are the ones that were identified per your land use and transportation plan. And with that, Lisa, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you. So the proposed zoning map and text amendment request is consistent with the land use plan. The land use plan identified a vision including land use character areas. The character areas form the basis of the proposed zoning districts that you just saw. Land uses within those proposed zoning districts are consistent with what was adopted in the land development plan or land use plan. So the proposed UDO and zoning map update is a reasonable use and in the public interest because it's one of the main tools to implement the community-driven land use plan that was adopted in 2018. The zoning map and text amendment request is a public hearing, so there was public notification that was required. Additional that was not required by state law is Kimley Horn and planning staff did hold 4 open house public workshops in the month of June in various locations of the city and various dates and times. Every property owner was mailed an invitation, and the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the draft ordinance sections, go over the proposed zoning map, and answer any questions and receive feedback from the public. There has been a project website that was created titled Transform Monroe that includes the proposed zoning map and the draft ordinance sections. It's been up at least way before June 2021. 20 rezoning notification signs were posted 10 days prior to the public hearing in various locations throughout the city of North, South, West, and East. A half-page ad and legal notification was placed in the Crier Journal on 2 different dates. And then, of course, an official notification letter was mailed to all property owners in the Monroe city limits and extraterritorial jurisdiction, as well as adjoining properties within 150 feet 10 days prior to the public hearing. Planning board and staff do recommend approval, and Kelly and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
How does that affect the ETJ? You know, they don't get to vote, so how's the Unified Development Ordinance? How's that going to affect the ETJ?
We're just trying to get the feedback squared away, council member.
Okay.
Well, the Unified Development Ordinance, the draft ordinance sections, and the zoning map has been proposed for all properties within the city limits and the extraterritorial jurisdiction, just as it is today. We currently control the zoning over the extraterritorial jurisdiction. I don't know if that answers the question or what it.
No, I want to know if it, by them not getting to vote, is it going to limit their opportunity to develop their property, or how's it going to affect them? Because you're taking somebody that doesn't live in the city, that can't vote, and I'd just like to know how it's going to affect their opportunities going forward.
Council member Kazai, it actually doesn't change anything. They already are zoned by the city. It just means that and I would defer to planning staff to note where their zoning may change in the ETJ, but they still have the same rights they had today that they had yesterday.
Okay.
The only issue, I think one other thing is, they have representation on the planning board. That's required by state law. So there is an ETJ representative, and that is still something that would still exist, you know, no matter what you do. But it wouldn't change in terms of they already, even though they don't have the right to vote for city council elections, the county does appoint an ETJ representative. So the ETJ representative sits in with the planning board. And of course, as you've seen, no doubt, over the years, residents in the ETJ have no problem coming to speak on matters where there's a rezoning that would be required.
Good answer. No problem. You got a hand raised behind you over there.
That would be public comment.
We'll recognize you later, man, if y'all would let her know that. Any other questions for Kelly or? Okay, thank you very much. I'll now call to the lectern those to speak in favor, and I think, Ron, you were at the top of the list here. Did you want to speak in favor? Yeah. We'll start when you speak.
We don't start until you talk.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Ron Pereira. I'm at 1118 Styx Drive. What I would like to ask is, I'm not a citizen of Monroe. I live 3 houses outside of the ETJ, what I call the extraterrestrial area. That's like movie. But anyway, so it's kind of funny because annexations are happening outside of the ETJ, right? And the people that live there are living in rural county area. So the annexation takes place, and but we're like, well, you're not a citizen of the city, so you don't really have a voice, you know. So what I'd like to do is once the UDO is approved, is see if we could have some kind of a group of people who are stakeholders, as mentioned in here. See if stakeholders could meet once a month or something and meet with the planning department and voice some of our suggestions and stuff. Because like you said, this is a work in process. It's not in concrete. In other words, you all aren't like, I guess, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and you know, that's in concrete. But so that was what I wanted to. Yeah, I think the UDO is fine. I just had some minor things, like the legend for the map does not include color for ETJ. It's not in the legend. And then in the legend you have RR, but I guess there is some RR. It's difficult for me to tell the colors of what was where and so on. And then, so just some things like that, and I was wondering if we could have some kind of a way for to meet with the planning department and maybe voice some of our suggestions and so on. You know, once the UDO is up and running and everything. So that was my that was my comments, and appreciate all the work that everybody's done on this. And one of the other things that I was wondering if there's just a couple of things in the I guess the last part of the UDO, which is the definition of terms. And there's 2 terms in there that I would like to have clarified. Oops, okay. One is the density, the density calculation, and the other one is the, what was it? One is, the EFT. If that could be, if you could have an example or something of how that works. The same thing with the density. If we could have an example so that people like me can try to understand it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any others here that would like to speak in favor? If you would state your name and address again.
My name is Rachel Donahue, and I live at 2337 Balting Glass Drive. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for listening to our feedback. I was here in October and was one of the ones who spoke and voiced my concerns, and I appreciate so much you taking the time to listen and put in, especially with regards to trees and common areas in the neighborhoods. Thank you to the council for putting this off and getting it right and working on it to hear the voice of the citizens. I'm still not thrilled about all these conditional developments and the higher density, but I am so thankful that you're taking measures to actually listen to the voices of the citizens and to protect our place. And I just wanted to say that. So thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in favor would like to speak?
Your check raised his hand.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Yurcheck.
I'm Richard Yurchek, 3004 Manchester Avenue, Monroe. We've been working on this project for a long time, many years. So this has been a thoughtful, laid out project. There have been hours and hours and days and weeks of public input. I know I made it to the Armory on a number of occasions to look at this and as it ties into Forward Monroe and all of that. So as y'all thoughtfully consider this evening, know that there was a lot of discernment that went into this. And so as y'all make your decision this evening, know that it was a well thought out process by the community and those that have sat there before you. The other thing to remember is this doesn't come from a burning bush, right? This thing's not carved in stone. So as you move forward this evening, remember this isn't the last time you're going to consider the UDO. It's not going to be the last time that somebody comes up and has a problem with it or likes it or dislikes it and is going to request that council make some sort of a decision on it. So remember, as you move forward from this evening's decision, it's probably not the last decision you're ever going to make as it relates to this. So don't feel like you have to do that. What we don't want is you to give up on good trying to achieve great. Let's get good done, then we can move forward. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in favor that'd like to speak?
Good evening, City Council members. I didn't plan to speak, but I think I got an urging. I grew up in the Winchester neighborhood, and I don't know what went on at the other meetings. I'm sure it was an interesting discussion, but I wanted to add my little 2 cents worth. And in the Winchester initiative, what was it? I forgot what it's called. Redevelopment Initiative. I wanted to, I'm not saying I'm for or against, but I just want to add to what is done in the Winchester Initiative. My name is Rosalie Little. I'm going to take this off. You might hear me better. And I grew up in Monroe, and I grew up in the Winchester neighborhood. And this is a historical neighborhood. It may not be the type of history some of us would like to repeat or talk about, but it was what it was. And I'm saying this is a historical neighborhood where black people looked up to black people in their community and churches. And we should have, if not a museum, we should have markers throughout the neighborhood which shows what happened at different points in the history of Monroe. During the war, they had Camp Sutton, and there were Catholic soldiers. It was an engineering camp. The people who went there, the soldiers that went there were engineers. And I had 2 uncles that went there. And they had to build a Catholic church because, of course, black soldiers could not attend the white Catholic churches. So it's still standing. St. Joseph's Catholic Church on Winchester Avenue. I would like for black youths to be able to point to some places and people that stood up for their rights and for freedom. And so I'm making a recommendation that in the Winchester initiative, they have some markers or whatever, museum or whatever, to point to the black people in that neighborhood that did stand up for civil rights. And that's all I had to say. Just another little addition, keep things straight, keep them real.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I'm sorry I took up time and didn't sign up, but I didn't know I had.
We thank you for your comments, ma'am. Anyone else to speak in favor at this time? Hearing none in opposition, Haskell Williams, please.
Haskell Williams, 3116 Creekwood Drive. And in reality, it's not opposition. It is, first, Mr. Mayor and council members, a thank you for delaying the enactment at our last meeting, or at the October meeting. Thank you to those in the planning who retained or created an RR to preserve the low density in that section of Monroe. Much appreciated. And thank you for the extensive work in the tree preservation. And I want to urge a very strict application of the law so that developers don't do a runaround having someone else clear cut it and then they come in and try to develop it. That the 3 to 5, use that to its fullest extent. We would urge that. And as the developments in and around Monroe are exploding, I would urge that the city do planning with the roads. Many of the secondary roads are becoming extremely crowded. Fowler or Seacrest Shortcut, Fowler Seacrest. It is with all of the developments that are in progress, I expect major congestion. And I don't know what kind of future planning has been done to decongest those roads, but it's going to be a mess if we don't take care of that. The other aspect specifically that concerns me is with the planning, as I noted in the examples, the examples of the fence, tree buffer, and bush, many of the utility lines run adjacent to the roads as well. And recently along Fowler Seacrest, they had to take out the whole row of trees there because of utilities. And that negates the buffer and takes away all of the effort that was done in the tree preservation. Those would be my comments, and I would I'm in favor of the overall UDO. Just would add those things for consideration by planning and zoning as well as the council. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kenneth Deal.
Kenneth Deal, 1212 Rosa Drive, Monroe. Mr. Mayor, council members. Again, not necessarily against a UDO. We do need a new UDO, but the devil is in the detail. There are provisions in there that still haven't been updated to properly address density on lots. The verbiage should be changed from overall acreage to buildable acreage. And particularly when developments are being done, they come in and they say we've met the 35% open space requirement, when in fact that 35% space is roads, utility right-of-ways, stream buffers, and streams that aren't usable by the actual residents there. So as Union County has done, we should also use buildable acreage when assigning density in our UDO. And as a last note, the city attorney said that it's a state law that representation from the ETJ be on the planning board. But the new UDO has taken away the county's ability to assign a UJT member to the board and states that the city of Monroe will assign one if there's a space available. That's the way I read it. Excuse me if I read it wrong. I'm more accustomed to leading nuclear carrier battle groups into the ocean than speaking about planning board development status. But I can't emphasize more. Don't give the developers the leverage by using a gross acreage computation. Buildable acreage is what they build on. Usable acreage is what they build on, not overall acreage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pam?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Planning Department, fellow residents. I want to thank you all for the hard work you guys have done, especially Lisa. I think you're my new BFF in trying to understand the UDO. I am not against the UDO. I'm here before you to kind of ask for your consideration to take it a step further. I'm not going to reiterate what Mr. Deal just mentioned about the gross versus buildable. I echo that. One of the reasons I do is because we need to increase our higher skilled workers here in Monroe, and quality homes, they've shown that statistically quality homes definitely correlate to certain types of industry being attracted. So what I was going to suggest is, regardless of what you decide tonight, I was hoping that you would consider putting some verbiage in the UDO by which we can do an annual review process. Call it a progress report, to where we as the governing bodies with the public can kind of do a quality check as to how things are going based on this UDO, because it is a living, breathing document. We're not going to put it on the shelf and leave it alone. In conversations with Lisa, she's mentioned to me, and now her staff is increased enough to where she can now get the statistics she needs, so she's not working off an Excel spreadsheet. She can actually start getting a GIS mapping, so now we can get the data and the statistics we can see holistically, so then we can see how we're really doing. So all I'm asking is perhaps we come together again, maybe 6 months, a year from now, if in the event you do approve this UDO. So as you can hear, there's a lot of great suggestions. We can come together as a community and make sure that we're partnering to make sure that Monroe is growing at the rate and the quality that we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bobby Griffin.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, and Attorney too, thank you for letting me come and speak briefly here. I'm not really concerned about everything. There's just a few of the areas that are subjected to be rezoned that I'm concerned about. And I apologize for not getting to your hearings earlier this year, but I appreciate the opportunity to come tonight. You get a lot of mail, that's generic kind of mail, you don't look at it. I didn't look at it carefully enough. And apparently those in my community didn't look at it carefully enough. This last notice got our attention because we got hold of a map and saw where the property I live on at 801 Club Drive, Monroe, North Carolina, fronts on 601, and it's a noisy highway street. But I live far enough off of it, so we enjoy living there, and it's now zone R20 SU, I believe. And as I understand, the proposed rezoning of my property, my neighbor Lyle's property, and about 4 other homes along there, but would be rezoned to whatever it means, medical mix, or MD mix. I assume that's medical mix. But I want to thank you for your service as public servants. And someone said one time that public office is a public trust, and I commend you for how you treat that office as a public trust for us poor citizens out here. There are 3 things that I've observed through the years that get people's attention. 1, children, taxes, and their property. And I suppose that's why I'm here, because this has got my attention, particularly when I didn't request this to be rezoned. Usually, and some of our folks out there see this as the heavy hand of the government telling us what's better for our property than we know ourselves. And so we're going to rezone your property from what it is now to what we think is best. And the planning department, I commend. I commend you for this effort tonight, and I'm not opposed to it. And you've got a fine staff, and you've worked on this carefully, I'm sure. And you may have better reasons, I think, about why my property ought to be rezoned without my permission. But that's why I'm here, and as the mayor has alluded to tonight and some other speakers, it's not in concrete, but yes, it does become pretty heavy and settled once you vote on it. And I'm sorry again that I'm late getting to the table to express my views for myself and a few others in my community. But there's an old country song that sort of ends in talking about love affair, and it's not all over until it's chiseled in stone. Well, I hope this is not chiseled in stone, particularly regarding those houses along 601 out there where I live, and I'm one of them. It affects me directly. And I would request that you revisit those areas about the rezoning. And if I can meet directly now that I know it's affecting me directly, I'll be glad to meet and try to convince them. Otherwise, I'll let them try to convince me that it ought to be rezoned medical MIGs. And I'm sure my neighbors would join in that too. So thank you for hearing me. I know you got an onerous burden trying to please everybody to do what's best for Monroe. But I think that's your goal, and I commend you for it, and thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Bobby. And Bobby, your best neighbor, Bruce Lyles.
You forgot to say.
He sleeps a lot, though, at public hearings.
I'm going to defer to the next speaker.
Okay, that's good, Bruce. No. The next speaker lives at 2050 Corinth Church Road. And I'm not positive who that person is. 2050 Corinth Church Road. Someone outside that lives at 2050 Corinth Church Road, please.
It'll have a name.
Well,
Hard to read.
You can't read
It's,
Between three of us, we can't read it.
Okay, all right. Sounds like my writing.
does look like Freddie Gordon.
Here, check on you, but I was here about this. We'll take that up. No one in the overflow?
There's no
Well,
one. Next
okay.
one.
If that person comes, we'll certainly recognize him or her.
What did you say?
It's Charles Walkup, I believe. Is that correct?
Charles Walker, 9603 Providence Road, South Waxhaw. I would like to first offer a prayer. Lord, as Jesus taught his disciples, I pray that your kingdom come, that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and especially in Monroe, in Union County. I ask that you put your protection around these council members, that they may not be seduced by the evil one's temptations. And I ask that your Holy Spirit give them wisdom and guide them in the decisions they are charged with making. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm also not against the ordinance, but I want to point out something I think is an important omission that needs to be included. Mayor, you alluded a while ago to our Constitution. By our Constitution, who is ultimately responsible for government? Elected officials, right? We, the people. Now I ask you, the more I learn, more I think our founders had a lot of wisdom, and it came from God's Word. And so they specified specifically what the federal government could do, and everything else was to be left to the states and the people. Has that been honored? Is that what we see today? Don't think so. And I think that's crept in at the state level too. And I don't want to see it happen at the local level either. But I think that is a temptation that we have to become aware of. And so, in terms of this ordinance, I'm saying we need to think about who needs to make the decision. Now, you're a city council, and in some sense you consider Monroe a community, but I'm talking about more of a real community, those people that live near each other, get to know each other. That's the kind of community I'm talking about. So within the city, there are many communities, I'll say. Well, if a developer, somebody who wants to build a lot of houses, why should you have to devote time like you have to do now, listening to a lot of people? If that's going to affect that local community, shouldn't they be the one to make the decision? Now, the planning board can certainly be a valuable resource to give them information they need to know. But as I see it, this ordinance should put the decision making where it rightly belongs, with the local community, not put it on your backs and spending a lot of time listening to a lot of people about that. So my suggestion would be it should specify a developer, instead of y'all sending out notices about a meeting, the developer is responsible for sitting down face to face with all the adjacent property owners and surrounding community. And so they would make the decision. Again, you all, the planning board, would be a resource to it.
Thank you, sir. Michael Flowing, Medlin Road. Are there some people still outside? Flowing, Flowing. Just kind of get more of a feel for each other. While we're waiting for Mr. Floyd, let me go ahead and.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
We're gonna join rooms or come over.
Okay, Trey Holmes, or Mr. or Ms. Holmes on Field Pond Lane. Mr. or Ms. Holmes on Field Pond Lane. Okay. Willie Holmes. Okay, so we've got a 2050 Corinth Church Road, a Mr. or Ms. Holmes, and
Flip the back.
sir,
Flip to the back.
and also Angela Elliott from Drake. There you are. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. My name's Angela Elliott. I live at 3116 Drake Lane over in Mallard Landing, and we are still an acre lot, which I appreciate that staying the same. My concern is all of these developments that are being added to Monroe. The three that came up tonight, all three were voted in. We already have one that's being built at Olive Branch and in Mallard Landing. That one is supposed to be 4 to an acre. I don't know how in the world they're a quarter of an acre. They look like they're teeny tiny, much smaller than that. But that's going to be a lot of traffic that's coming out onto Olive Branch and right there at Morgan Mill. That's already a dangerous intersection. Cyrus Edwards is the cut through to go from Olive Branch to Morgan Mill to avoid that other intersection. Those are the only two ways that anybody on the east side of the lake can get to the bypass or to 74 or anywhere south. unless we go all the way around the lake and come back down. So now we've got a whole nother neighborhood that's gonna be getting off on Olive Branch. The Cottage Green that y'all just approved tonight, they're gonna be coming up 601. The first bypass, exit to get on the bypass is Morgan Mill. So that's more traffic coming up Morgan Mill. We've got all of the trash trucks and the dump trucks coming down Olive Branch. We're gonna have to get out in front of them. It's a very narrow road. We've got a lot of traffic on it, and we're adding more and more developments. That development that's already there has already been started. There's another one that's been approved on your conditional, on your UDO. There's an area right before you get to the bypass on Olive Branch that's going to be townhomes, basically, or condos. I think it's, I've forgotten what it's zoned, but it's the pink area. I don't have a map in front of me. But that's going to be more homes. And everything past that is RR. So I'm not sure why that one little section is going to be such small lots. And then on the other side of Morgan Mill, they're doing conditional use, which is going to be a lot more congestion right in that area. I'm worried that the roads are not going to keep up with it. I mean, how are we even going to get out onto the main roads with all this traffic? That's basically what I have. I'm just concerned about the dangers of the roads. And as far as the beautification, kind of tagging on to what they were talking about earlier, Monroe, every time we go out to dinner, my husband will say, well, let's go to Indian Trail. Let's go to, he's like, why can't Monroe is so pretty. Why can't we have all of the business and the restaurants and the busyness that all these other towns have, that other people are going to? I mean, we leave, I'm sorry, but it's just, we need to work on 74 also, as far as people.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Bob Yanachek is the next person to speak. And I'm not sure, are there still some, is Bob outside?
Sorry?
We had Bob Yanachek signed up to
I
speak.
think he already left.
Okay. Then we've got Larry, last name starts with a C. Sounds like. Is there anyone here that has signed up or not signed up that would like to speak? Not in favor of the UDO. Okay, there being no other speakers, I will close the public hearing and move to take action.
I'd like to make a motion to approve adoption of the ordinance to amend chapter 156, the old Unified Development Ordinance and official zoning map.
Actually, Councilmember Carr, you actually need to go back up on the agenda for that. There you go.
Bridget will tell me what to do.
Motion to approve.
Go to that, maybe you have the motion agenda. Do you have the motion agenda?
No.
Well, that's weird.
We don't have it.
No, we do. Just maybe why you don't get it.
I see the one with the developer agreement, but I don't see this one.
It's on the top of page 8.
Where? Bridget, did all the members receive the motion agenda?
No. Motion
Maybe.
to adopt.
I believe it's 8B. So what it would be, Mr. Carr, is that your motion would be to move to adopt a resolution approving land use and transportation plan compliance, unified development ordinance, and zoning map update.
That sounds like my board.
There you go. And if someone would second that.
Second.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, please.
Let's see.
Motion to adopt ordinance approving.
approve code of ordinances.
I'll second that.
Well, we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance approving the, amending the code of ordinance and to delete chapter 156. Those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Then this one would be just.
Motion to adopt ordinance approving amending code of ordinances to delete old official zoning map.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you.
Motion to adopt ordinance approving ordinance amending code of ordinances to add new chapter 157.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, please.
Motion to adopt ordinance. Go to that one.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending code of ordinances to add new official zoning map.
I'll second it.
All right, a motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand, please. Motion carries. Thank you very much for your time, and thank everyone for your.
Thank everybody
Thank
for
you
their
for your
patience
input. I
tonight.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Next up, it will be the consent agenda. Please give people. I don't think Bobby Griffin's house was rezoned as the land behind it.
Yeah, I think so too.
See you, Drew. See you, Pam.
Oh, yeah, man.
Hey there. Good seeing you, my friend. Hey, it's because I need to go to the bathroom.
He had kids. Let's see how you go.
Folks, with your indulgence, I'm going to ask for another 5 or 6 minute, very short recess here.
Okay.
Folks, I'll reconvene the meeting, and we're going to ask Pastor Benton if he would be kind enough to offer a word of prayer for us tonight.
Let us pray. Our kind Father, we thank you for this council who thought enough to ask for an invocation of blessing. Lord, on tonight, they've really already done the heavy lifting. But even amidst that, cover them under your divine providence. Allow them to continue to be the servants to this great city that they are. We ask this and all things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Red Hawks.
Thank you, Julie, for bringing that to my attention. Okay, next is the consent agenda, and we will let Brown proceed with that if you would, please.
I'd like to request, sir, that we hold number 16 for discussion, if we may.
Okay,
Please, sir.
we'll just, I guess, that will go to regular agenda.
No, actually, just be discussed at
Just
the
be
end of the
discussed.
consent. After council
Then
approves the
we can move
remainder of
forward with it.
consent,
All right,
you'll deal with that.
we'll go back to that. All right, item, the consent agenda. Item 6, well, the consent agenda is to consider items that are non-controversial routine, and it can be acted upon by one motion and vote of council. The consent agenda contains the following items. Item 6 is an annexation request for 17 acres located along MLK Junior Boulevard. This is a call for a public hearing for annexation of 17 acres located off of MLK Junior Boulevard to be held on May 10th, 2022. This is a request by Union Academy Foundation. Item 7, annexation, rezoning, and water and sewer development agreement request.
This is a call for a public hearing for annexation to consider a zoning map and text amendment request to rezone property of 81.57 acres along MLK Junior Boulevard from R20 to Conditional District Cedar Meadows, to be held on May 10th, 2022. The annexation and rezoning is being requested in order to develop a single-family residential subdivision and to further consider as part of the public hearing a water and sewer development agreement for the project. Item 8 is an annexation, rezoning, and water sewer development agreement request. This is a call for a public hearing for annexation to consider a zoning map and text amendment request to rezone property of 29.206 acres along Waxhaw Highway from Union County RA20 and RA40, Additional District Waxhaw Landing Phase 2, to be held on May 10, 2022. The annexation and rezoning is being requested in order to develop a single-family residential subdivision and to further consider as part of the public hearing a water and sewer development agreement for the project. Item 9 are budget amendments. A is the Charlotte Monroe Executive Airport Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Grant. This is to request approval of Budget Amendment 2022-10 in the amount of $82,000 to appropriate funding from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Grant Award from the Federal Aviation Administration. B is Fire Department donation from Councilmember Julie Thompson. This is to accept a donation made to the Fire Department in the amount of $250 from Councilmember Julie Thompson's discretionary fund to support the Monroe Fire Explorer program and approve BA 2022-14, allocating these funds to the Fire Department. Item C is the General Accounting Standards Board 87 compliance. This is to request to consider a budget amendment, BA 2022-11, to designate funds for the city's postage machine, lease contract copier and printer lease contract, as well as recognize funds for the city's airport lease contracts in accordance with a new governmental accounting standard 87 that is effective for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. D is Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission establishment. This is a request to consider approval of a budget amendment, BA 2022-13, in the amount of $360,000 to allow for the purchase of office items and pay renovation expenses necessary in the creation of the new Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission. Item 10, budget ordinances. A, Enterprise Resource Planning Financial Software System. This is a request to consider approval for Budget Ordinance 2022-07 in the amount of $40,000 to utilize temporary labor to assist with the remainder of implementing the new Enterprise Resource Planning financial software. B is the Monroe Science Center grant from the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources.
How much was that?
$100,000. This is to request acceptance of the grant funds in the amount of $100,000 and adopt a capital project budget ordinance 2022-06 to appropriate these funds to the Monroe Science Center exhibit project. This is the North Carolina General Assembly directed the funding through the current Operations Appropriations Act of 2021. Item 11 is a call for public hearing to be held on May 10th to consider a zoning request and zoning map and text amendment request to rezone properties along Sutton Place from conditional district Aaron Field at Sutton Place to RMF residential multifamily to conditional district CD Sutton Place townhomes. The rezoning is requested in order to develop an 81-lot single-family attached townhome residential development. Item 12, the downtown master plan update. This is a request of City Council to approve the requested budget amendment 2022-12 for additional funding in the amount of $50,000 and recommends awarding the Downtown Master Plan update to McAdams and allowing the interim city manager to execute all related documents to award the contract. Item 13, the Energy Services Master Supply Agreement for Transformers. This is a request to consider award of a contract for the purchase of various electric commodities utilizing a master supply agreement with Westco and authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract on behalf of the city of Monroe. The agreement is for an initial term of 3 years with supply and purchase requirements reviewed quarterly and modified accordingly. The contract is renewable for 3 one-year terms. The total contract shall not exceed $7.5 million for the initial term and will be prorated any renewable terms. Item 14, Energy Services Oil Filtration Trailer. This is request of City Council to award the purchase of an oil filtration trailer to Filtration Solutions in the amount of $116,485 and authorize the interim city manager to execute any and all necessary documents. Item 15, minutes of the City Council meetings of January 25th and March 8th. This is to approve meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022, special strategic planning meeting, March 8th, 2022, regular meeting, and strategic planning meeting minutes. We'll come back to 16 later. Item 17, ordinances. Code of Ordinances, Title III, Administration, Chapter 32. This is a request to consider approval of an ordinance amendment to Section 32 titled Boards, Commissions, and Departments of the City Code of Ordinances. B, Fiscal Year 2021-22 Fee Schedules, Chapter 10, Parks and Recreation. This is to request approval of changes to the membership fees associated with the Monroe Country Club Golf Course, along with the cart fee charges to be more in line with adjacent golf courses, as well as to raise the needed revenue to be sustainable. Item 18, we have resolutions, disposal of auction sale of 2004 Freightliner dump truck. This is a request of council to authorize the disposal of the 2004 Freightliner dump truck as defined by General Statute 160-278 by approving Resolution R 2022-32. Item B is another disposal by auction sale. This is a request of council to authorize the disposal of the 2004 Freightliner dump truck and 2000 Volvo tandem dump truck as defined by General Statutes 160-270A by approving Resolution R 2022-31. Item C, Economic Development Efforts of Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission. This is a request of council to adopt a resolution supporting the economic development efforts of the new Monroe Union County Economic Development Commission. D, Fire Department 2021 Standards of Cover. This is a request of City Council to approve Resolution R 2022-33, adopting the Standards of Cover. The Standards of Cover contains written policies and procedures that, after a community risk assessment and hazard analysis, establish the distribution and concentration of fixed and mobile resources and provides a rational and systematic way of measuring services provided by an organization. E, we have the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality state loan and or grant funding. This is a request council approve Resolution R 2022-30 and authorize the interim city manager as the named authorized official to execute any and all needed documents as required as part of NCDEQ funding applications for city projects. Staff is recommending an application to NCDEQ for the following projects that are contained in the city's FY23 and FY24 capital improvement plan. There are 4 items on the list for application. That would be water treatment plant generator at $250,000, water treatment plant basin number 2 coating, $700,000, water treatment plant basin number 3 coating at $800,000, and water treatment plant filter chemical basin upgrade at $2.9 million. 19, retiring employee Warren Carter Plyler Jr. This is to request City Council adopt Resolution R 2022-29 and that Council authorize awarding Chief Plyler his fire helmet for 1 cent on the occasion of his retirement. Item 20, sanitary sewer main cured in place lining. This is to request award a contract change order to Institute Form Inc. in the amount of $184,899.45 as shown, authorize a 5% contingency allowance, and to authorize the interim city manager to execute the necessary documents for additional sanitary sewer main replacements using cured in place lining technology. Item 21, senior center furnishings. This is to request City Council award the contract for the purchase and installation of furniture for the senior center renovation project in the amount of $110,584.27. Next section of the agenda, would we want to do 16 after this one?
What you need to do is that, Mayor, is that the council needs to take a vote on the remaining items, and then you come back to discuss 16.
So that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. We have a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda,
Except
for
for
item
with the
16.
exception of item 16.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand, please. Okay, thank you very much.
Can I say one thing?
You need to go over these items here.
No, you need to, no, that's not even approvable. You don't approve that.
That's just for information. I'll read those after.
So,
But you can, Mary should probably go ahead and turn it, since Councilmember Thompson requested to pull item 16, you may wish to ask her to
yes, sir.
discuss any issues or concerns or the rationale for pulling the item with her.
We'll now
Yes, sir.
pull up 16 and discuss it.
Thank you for your consideration, and Brian, I want to thank you for the information you provided for me that was outlining processes and things that go with these kinds of projects. It was very helpful to me. I don't want to see this project not go forward, not even tonight. That's why I don't want to pull it and move it somewhere else. That's not my goal. But I do think there's some things that have been seen in the conceptual drawings that I know that you're the chairman of the General Services Committee, right? And has a question, and there's been some other questions that if we can discuss it and resolve it now, we can move forward with it. So that's why that's why I did it.
I'll be happy to
If you
try
can
to
answer
questions.
I'd appreciate that very
Okay.
much.
This is the drawing, right? But that's what, there's a power box on the left over here that buzzes a lot, that definitely needs to be addressed. I just want to make sure, and the Penny's building at the back, to really and truly looks like Fido's butt. I mean, it is really bad. And I don't want people to come to this and say, hey, man, this is nice. I want them to say, wow, this is really nice.
We will address the power boxes. I mean, that's all part of the plan. There's a lot of infrastructure work that's going to be taking place. So once we start opening up the ground, and I think Matt will confirm, we've already found a lot of that. They've already begun adjusting some of that infrastructure because some of it goes on the back of the downtown office building. And the back portion of that building, you remember we bought it from Beeson, that's going to come out. So there's a lot of different infrastructure work, and once we open that ground, those boxes will be addressed, that kind of thing.
Okay, this is on the left side. Okay, what about the back of Penny's building?
Well, that's private property, so we'll have to try to work with the landowner to.
Who owns that,
property
do you know?
owner. Matt, do you remember who owns what
Penny's.
part of the Monroe Hardware?
Yeah, the back of Penny's, where Penny's used to be.
The one with the mezzanine around it, the smaller piece.
Steve Bespiki's. Stephen Bespiki's, it's the Franklin 8 partnership.
Okay, and they're connected with Sonoma
Penny's,
Law?
Penny Lazarou is his sister.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I couldn't remember the name.
So it's the same people that have the hardware?
It's a group of, all related to each other.
Right.
The Fab 7.
Now, they do have plans for part of that building, and I'll let Matt speak to that. He knows more
I
about
was just going to refer to the alleyway in general. We're hoping to use a lot of public art to address those possibly utility boxes and stuff like that. Electric still has to have access to some of those boxes. So we're using decorative fencing that they're able to lift up to access them still. Also in the plans, there is conduit built in for possible removal of the overhead power lines as well to make it all look.
What about the box there on, just as you, on the left as you go in, it buzzes all the time?
It depends on who's over that. We can always.
That is the city's electric box, and I speak to that because we've had to replace the breakers in that box once before because of the buzzing, and that was probably 13 years ago, so it's probably time to replace those again.
But see, when you let the contract, if we don't address these things, how are we gonna get the contractor to do it?
Those are all addressed in the drawings.
The Penny's building?
Well, we can't address the Penny's building, that's private property.
But we can go to them and say, you know, we're.
Yeah.
And I bet you they would go along with it, because you're not talking
Well,
about.
they are interested and they are supportive of the plan. They already know and.
They said that I spoke to them on occasion throughout their process, and they said that whatever we need, they'd be willing to help us with the process to move it along.
Okay, listen, I want to see this project as worse than anybody, because I want to tell you how this thing started. We sold that land back there to two guys that we had confidence in, that we're going to open that up. Well, they hoodooed us. 10 years later, we bought it back and had to pay 6 times what they bought it for. So it's been a real circus about getting this thing done. But it seems like to me this could, you know, it could add an extra, it don't matter to me, a couple $100,000 to get this thing right.
Well, all of the utilities is most of the project work in here, addressing all of that stuff. That's all part of it. That's the biggest majority of the cost here.
Okay, what about back to the Pennies? If we can, you know, it would be nice maybe if we even had a mural or two coming in that.
Those are within the project.
Okay.
On some of the walls, that's all part of that.
But see, when I look at that, I see blasé, and that's the reason.
Well, you're seeing kind of a view in plan and different things. See, this is kind of like the same process we used at the theater. You know, we brought the plan to council. It was approved, the budget for the theater was approved. We brought the plans once they were finished, and then council let staff do their work, and all of these little things that needed to be ironed out, we worked it out through the process. We had issues with the fabric for the seats being back ordered. We worked with the company to make that change, get it in. Most of you probably don't even realize it wasn't the original fabric.
No, I just want to make sure that, and another thing, you know, the building the city owns that hopefully 3 restaurants may end up buying that are pretty involved, aren't they interested?
The warehouse, yes, 108.
Okay, right, the only area I see that there's any wasted space is right at the front of Windsor Alley. You could put 3 nice tables in there. I don't know what that is back in there. What is that?
It might be that box you're talking about.
No, it's not.
There's a bank of electric
Right here, yes.
offices.
Yeah, see, that's what I was referring to with the electric department still needs access to this box right here.
Is that electric?
Those are all the electric meters.
Okay, I couldn't
Where's
tell.
that gonna go?
Yes,
And that's a very.
Unless you want to give them the power for free.
Yeah,
That's a much narrower space than Morgan.
I just couldn't figure out what it was. Now, this other one, we're not gonna put no splash pad in that thing, are we?
A splash pad is probably the wrong term for that. There is kind of a water feature. It's basically a spigot embedded that can kind of put up a little water, but it's kind of like a dry fountain.
Okay.
It won't run all the time, but it does add interest. Now, that's something that in conversations and once we open up the ground, it may be, staff working with the contractor and designer. That may be something that there might not be the water component. It might be just a paving design or something.
Sure.
But
Which
that's-
will save us money. I'm all for that.
and it's the same process
No
we did
splash
with
pad.
I
the
agree.
theater and the science center and all of that. That's what staff does.
No, you've answered all, and then one question though, and that is lighting. I don't know that you got enough, if there are couples in there at 9 o'clock at night, they're sitting in Weddington. And
Now, lighting has to be done.
So in terms of lighting,
Monroe, we're not Weddington.
well, I mean, seriously,
Does
that's,
my face look like?
I just want to make sure that, people feel comfortable.
so not
Heritage of Progress, and we're not Weddington.
right. So not only will there be those hanging lights, we'll also have standalone poles that will have lighting on it as well.
Now,
And
we have to balance the lighting too, because we
Yeah.
have residential on the 2 floors above the warehouse.
No, you answered all my questions. I just, I think to me, I think this is the most important thing we have done. Because you're gonna make Monroe more attainable for people to wanna come, shop, walk.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure it's done. And when I look at this, it's pretty, but it's blasé and that,
Well, I think you'll be pleased. It's not as blasé as that.
I don't think the schematics do it justice in terms of what the potential of that space can be, in terms of what art we can provide in the space, the seating. It would be sort of unique to the area as well and be a destination as well.
Let me come
Well,
back to what Lynn, I'm sorry.
no,
James wanted to say
it wasn't it was just trying to understand where you were. And you made me understand and,
And Matt's been very on top of it with the project, and so.
Let me echo kind of what Lynn said, though, about mural, whatever. Doesn't Richard Price on that first building, as
He
you walk down?
does where the,
It might behoove us to take a look at Richard's building, the side of it, the Pennies, the Monroe Hardware, and see what we could do to work with those landlords to where we could put whatever we needed to put nice artwork on those walls. And I think what Lynn was saying was if we need to allocate more funds for that, let's look at doing that now if we can
What-
kind of get an idea of what.
No, let me, and Matt can speak to this probably better than I, but all of the vertical elements are not going to be attached to private property because that causes legal agreements and whatever. So it will be kind of mounted by itself. So the mural will probably be mounted right in front of the wall and could be maybe changed or like on a panel or something later. We don't want to have to get into a bunch of different legal agreements because we can't just paint or mount on their wall.
Well,
So
we
this
could,
would,
with their approval, we could we?
we could, but,
But do we want to?
but do we want to?
Well,
Do they or we?
Do we want to?
Well, if it's, I just, that's your main hall, and, you can, I would say think out of the box.
Right.
Try to make it to where it's special. When councilman over there walks in, he's gonna look around and say, damn, where are we at?
I'm in Weddington.
I think you'll be surprised, you'll
I thought
have
we
the
weren't
same,
winning.
you'll have the same effect as walking in the theater or the science center. You'll look and it's, wow, this is in Monroe.
Well, I'll admit, now, the other night at that comedy show, that was impressive. It was full, and that thing turned out better than I thought it would.
Can I share an interesting fact? We had a cruise-in that probably brought 200 cars parked all over the streets, on the streets. We had an art walk that brought artists and people walking to see art and buy art, and seeing the cars. We had a theater that sold out 560 seats. I was walking around downtown and I ate downtown that night. Everyone was happy, everyone was very complimentary, and not a single person complained about parking. Not a single person.
When I had probably 40 or 50. I'm lying too.
Well, the only comments I heard was, and I don't want to belabor this, I'm ready to move on, but some did mention to me that they would like for those things to be spread out, so we would have something going on every night instead of maybe 3 at the same time. I don't have a problem with the 3, but a lot of people want more.
Well,
And they want it more nights, so we need to look.
Well,
There was some nice
There-
old cars.
Okay,
Get it.
yeah.
It's coming.
That's good, okay.
That was the only time they.
Okay,
Do you
I-
have something?
I had a few questions. Now, on the infrastructure, on the things that are being fixed, all the electrical is going to be replaced or upgraded? And I'm talking particularly, and everyone's walking.
Now, don't
by
look
those
at the
buildings.
finance person, because we're gonna do it no matter what it costs.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Because currently, if you walk behind the buildings that front on Main Street, and you look up to the left, so you're looking west, those electric lines are terrifying to anybody that has to work on those buildings.
So portions of the problem are, some of it is customer wire and some of it is the utilities wire. The utility can supply an estimate for correcting the utilities wire, but there are many customer wires that come through that area of the feeder base that we don't have the right to touch.
Is
So
that
it's,
the same case on Morgan? It's got a cluster of wires on the whole side cargo entrance to the hardware.
it is some there as well, and then there's a lot of communication wire there also.
Dead, like Frontier junk?
Not necessarily dead. I mean,
There's some Spectrum as well. I've reached out to
Yes.
Spectrum. They're willing to work with us as well. They have some.
Frontier too?
Yes.
Frontier's still work
A
in
little
progress.
slower.
Yes.
A lot of it will be cleaned up.
Yep.
And we'll just deal with what's left the best we can. That's,
Good luck with Frontier. And then the water lines and any sewer lines will be replaced when you get everything dug up.
we'll actually know where some of them are.
So they're actually starting the demo this week of that existing building between the warehouse and at my office. And then Water's going to come in and do some investigative and possibly some upgrades within that alleyway as well for their customers.
And correct the flooding at the other end.
Yes, that's all part of the contractors and in the architectural plans in terms of grading.
Floods into 808 and 106 anytime there's heavy rain.
Yeah.
Well, all of that will be addressed when that whole plaza area is redone. You have doors that open up into there. So that will all have to be kind of sloped in a way that it takes it away and down.
There's a way for it to get to Winter Street, and I think this is a great project. I think it's pedestrian connectivity that we've needed. the issue that I have heard over and over and over again is continuity and more classic design with the aesthetic of what is actually installed. We had a very dramatic public response about the awnings over the parklets. And I know there was tons of time and effort put into planning those and getting people's opinion, but once they were up, they were obviously, you know, it was pitchfork and torch time. And I would hate to see money spent on a commercial or industrial look within this alleyway project that would have to be taken down or have to be revisited after it's put up. You know, the concept, the connectivity, opening up, fixing the drainage issues, the electric, the sewer, no one objects to that. That's a fantastic idea. And as far as dealing with private property owners, you know, probably a lot of that can happen as far as this being some of the wires being, you know, part of the building, but the actual benches and the swings and, you know, whether this is an interactive fountain or a splash pad or whatever, I really encourage us to go a more traditional, classic, post-Victorian look that is more in keeping with the majority of the buildings that we have downtown.
Yeah, I would agree to that. Now, Matt, when you pull this off, and the night we open it up, you're gonna come riding in on a horse.
Oh, I take full responsibility. I will say this, though. McAdams is well known throughout the small downtowns across the state. They're always a key sponsor for our state conference as well, because they're known for incorporating historic preservation with new mythology and new ways of preserving existing structures.
Mythology?
Well, sorry, methodology.
I mean, I like mythology.
Apologies.
Now, you have to remember, the look that you saw was a result of the three public input sessions that we had. People rated and picked images. So in the process, we could incorporate some of the traditional, but in the process, I don't want us to discount the input that many people gave us at these input sessions. We can't discount that because that is what they want to see, and that is what some of them expect to see. And it's a blend of the new and the old. Downtown is not a single period. It's been developed through a number of years.
No one's arguing this. I mean, it's definitely a living document, and doing the infrastructure is something that is a must-do project. But I think for the most part, that the streetscape, the hardscape that we're installing, the lighting, the benches, whether you have screening, I think needs to look really good but be unnoticeable. What needs to shine is the actual architecture of the buildings. Like, you don't necessarily always complement a street lamp. You know, if it's an aesthetic design that complements the area, it's something that's just a positive.
There's not much architectural detail on the aesthetic of the rear of the buildings.
But you're going from one point to the other. You just want a clean, as Hemingway says, a clean, well-lighted place. And if you choose to pause and have a meal or have a drink, then you can.
What we're asking is for you to pull a miracle.
Well, how many damn miracles you want me to pull over here,
You did
Lynn?
a good job.
One more.
Just one more.
One more.
Just one more?
Just one more.
Yeah, right.
Between you and Matt. And remember, we're behind you 100%, aren't we, Gary?
Well, we believe me, staff appreciates the support, and we appreciate the trust and the autonomy given in doing our jobs. So we will do our best to do what's best for the city and the downtown, as we always have. And I appreciate the confidence given in that. So.
Well, I've got to ask one last question. When Lynn was talking about those transformers over there on the left as you're going east on Morgan. Can those be relocated once we knock down that area? I mean, once we're digging up that street, we can, all we're talking about is 40 feet of
That's some big
high voltage cable.
Yeah, that's,
Well, yeah, he's got scrap cable. We can, you're moving from one side of the street maybe to another one, or maybe in the back of the.
Most transformers downtown are serving 17 to
Oh, what
50
now?
customers.
They're what?
Most transformers downtown are serving 17 to 50 customers. So it's not just a simple move here. You have all these different connections that are going to each transformer.
But Marion, if we get the buzz stopped and we put a nice artificial type thing in front of it, that'll probably.
We'll get Tesla to design it.
You have to remember that there's a certain component here that the city is responsible for, but at a certain point, if we make too many changes, it's gonna be the person that owns the building's responsibility.
Correct.
I want to be very sensitive and mindful of that, and I don't want them to have incurred costs that they're.
No.
Because then it's really gonna blow up.
No.
And there are conduits that are being put into the project for future improvements. As attrition happens to these buildings and things are upgraded, then there will be some options to do upgrades in the future as well.
We'll do the best you can.
Yep, and that's what we're gonna try to do.
And expect a few change orders. I'm telling you now.
That's every job.
But Matt's doing a great job working with the architect and our consultant on this.
We're ready to go. Julie,
I make a motion, we move forward with it.
I second it.
Is that doable, Chief?
It would be just to approve item 16.
Adam, and I second it.
All right, we have a motion to approve item 16. Raise your hand.
Okay.
Those opposed?
Okay, so that was 5-1.
No, I didn't vote against it.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
He
You
raised
raised
his
your
hand.
hand, you're late.
Yeah, I raised my hand.
Raise your hand when so is your vote a yes then?
It's a yes.
Then it would be a 6-0 vote, madam.
Now, one thing I would ask in summation is that we have an update on what kind of lighting and tables are the final decision, so that
agree.
we don't have another Main Street canopy thing to deal with.
I agree.
Now the speaking for the parklet, that's another incident where people were contacted and we got no negative. So, the two owners of the buildings were closely working when it was done. So there seems to be some differing memories on that.
Mayor, we should probably go forward with the next set of items.
Let's do that.
Okay, informational committee minutes, committee staff notes and reports. I'll be as quick as I can on these.
I thought we already approved those.
You actually don't approve those.
Well, I mean,
Speed read it.
Committee minutes and staff reports, items A through D of various committee board minutes. 23, disbursement of fiscal year 21-22, city discretionary. Mr. Gordon gave $250 to the Arts Council. Mr. Carr gave $250 to Turning Point. Ms. Thompson gave $250 to the Police Explorer and $250 to Fire Explorer program and $250 to Soul 139 Ministries. Financial reports, unassigned fund balance $3,875,656. Signed general fund balance $2,751,654. Summary of contracts. We had contracts change orders awarded for February and March totaling $664,508.37. No settlement of claims to report. Done.
So move we adjourn.
No, sir, you have a closed session.
Closed session.
We'll try to keep it brief.
I'll request someone to read the closed session item here. It's on your last page.
Julie already put mine up about reading.
Y'all can't leave.
Y'all can't go. Thank you, Matt.
I got Freddie's got it.
Yeah. I move to go to closed session
I
pursuant
second
to
it.
North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.
By Ron.
See you,
Good
Chief.
night.
11, A1 and A3 to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state and of the United States and not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the general statutes to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the city's attorney and the city council to consider and give instruction to the city's attorney concerning the handling of claims. We have a second.
I second it.
All right, we have
All
a
those in
motion.
favor? Okay.
Raise your hand. All right. All in favor, okay. Is camera off, Pete?